Hey everybody, welcome back to X's for Show, your premier web response show where we're talking some amazing friends today. I'm Nico and you can catch me all over the interwebs at Nico Action. That's NICOACTION.
And I'm TK. You can find me at TK Elemental.
And I'm your producer, Kevin. You can find me at Kevo Really.
You can actually find him under that sweet, sweet spider butt. That is a
know,
well-made
right?
background, sir.
Thank you. I did it on purpose.
So speaking of things that are awesomely on purpose, we are here to talk about a movie that I don't think a single part of could have been intentional. The comedy they made tonight was not the comedy they intended when the Spider-Verse began. We are here to talk a bunch about Madam Web and then to shake it out a little bit and talk about all the spider films of the 21st century, the ones that Buck Rogers would have grown up with. So I want to start with I was no Spider fan growing up. Hey, Tasty Cake, it's the other TK we couldn't possibly live without. I was not a Spidey guy. I loved Spider-Girl from the MC2 universe. I loved some cool Spider characters from Spiting, but I was not a Spider guy. So a lot of this was me coming into it as an adult, being about it, and coming to appreciate things about these movies in a different order.
Did you read any Spider stuff like in the 90s? Like, did you regularly read any Spider stuff?
No, regularly, absolutely not. The only time I tried to read regularly was The Gathering of Five, which is the thing that makes Maddie Franklin Spider-Girl. So I was like or Spider-Woman. So I was super attached to her from that. And other than that, I don't have
so you
an
didn't
answer.
You didn't do like Clone Wars or Maximum Carnage or any of that?
No, can I be honest with you? And I'm gonna be real with you. Like when I was a kid and I would be walking through Sears with my mom. That's Sears Roebuck. I would be like, why is there like fucking Maximum Carnage on everything? I don't know Sega Genesis. This is bullshit. Give me some X-Men. And so like I almost felt like the amount of Cletus Cassidy I was pelted with, it was just it was awful.
Yeah.
So what about you? Did you Spidey up through the years?
I really did. It was all about my poor folks just got absolutely swindled by the comic shop owner in our little town. Because I was into the books I was into. I mean, and it was primarily the X books, but he really was like, if your kid's gonna be buying comics and collecting them anyway, you need to buy these foil covers. Like,
oh my god, please just tell me they didn't get Death of Superman.
What timing? What dramatic timing?
So I think that is why I had so many Spider books. But like I genuinely vividly remember owning all of the Clone Saga, and that was like really one of my first flirtations with like, okay, this is a lot of nonsense for a 5-year-old to like try and figure out what's happening here. I think I was maybe 8. Like if you don't have the backstory here, this is tough. I don't know exactly what is happening here. I don't know who this jackal gentleman is. But yeah, that and Maximum Carnage I distinctly remember because I really remember the flashback to Cletus killing his grandmother. And
formative for so many of us.
Absolutely. Well, it's just one of those things where I was like, this is not something I should be reading. This is disturbing for a child. And so yeah, it's funny. I really like I remember those Daredevil Man Without Fear covers, those Romita covers so well, but I did not own that book. And I did not get into that book. And then, if you asked me before I met you, I would have been like, no, I wasn't really a Daredevil fan in the 90s, and I'm not one now because I never got into it. And I would have said the same thing about Spider-Man, but the fact of the matter is I actually did own and read a bunch of Spider-Man in that era. I gave up very shortly after that. Like I didn't get to even when they had Baby May and Baby May got kidnapped. Like by then I was totally out. But for that brief time right around the Clone Saga, I was very into Spider-Man, and then I was crazy for some reason into Force Works. So I really, and West Coast Avengers. So I really love Julia Carpenter.
Wow, that's okay. So Kevo, were you into Spider-Man, or were you scary into spider things like this guy over here? I'm joking. You know, you were not like the world's biggest spider stan, as we discovered in all of our amazing coverage available over on the YouTube, where you can check out tons of information about us talking about tons of spider characters, like the ones we're going to mention this episode: Mayday, Araña, Arachne. We're going to even bring up the Slingers. That's right, Ricochet, Prodigy, Dusk, and Hornet. Ha!
Nailed it.
So Kevin,
well, first to read Taste's comment, he says, I'm old. I watched the 70s cartoon, the Americanized TV series, and the 80s cartoon, plus comics during the 90s. Won't talk about the toys. Actually, one of my biggest affiliations with Spider-Man was the toys. And, sir, if you watched your own content, you would actually know that what you said was false. No, I actually did grow up on more Spider-Man than other Marvel. I was an enormous fan of this over here.
Oh,
Spider-Man,
she was
the
great.
animated series. Huge fan of that when we were kids in the 90s. This was my X-Men the animated series. I never got into X-Men the animated series. It was a little bit too hard for me. Yes.
I don't know if everybody knows this animated series actually has like so much credibility. The opening theme is by Joe Perry.
Yes, we have discussed that at some point. I have a note of that to make a reel of that at some point. But yeah, so I was super into this one. My reading experience with Spider-Man was weirdly not comics so much as it was, I had this novel. I picked it up from like a Borders bookstore, and I got like a chapter and was like, nope, this is not for my age level. I didn't even notice until right now that it says book 2 of a trilogy. I was like 8 to 10 years old, had no idea. I feel like my mom was one of those people that thought comics was the devil, so she didn't really pick me up a lot of comic books. It was mostly just the cartoon experience. And we talked about on, I believe it was our toy episode, how I had the Spider-Man figure. What was the episode where we talked about that? I can't remember what the name of the brand was, but they were like Barbie doll sized action figures.
Yeah, I can't think of it, unfortunately.
Anyway.
Kevo, if you could just flash back to that book cover for a moment. You caught for the first time that it's book 2. One thing that I really noticed here is the author's name is Diane Duane. Which it's just one letter different, and it's actually just doubling the I into a U. And if that's not a pen name, life was incredibly kind to Diane Duane, because that is quite a stylable name.
Unbelievably prolific author and creator of the series Young Wizards, Diane Duane. Yes, I believe that is her birth name.
Lucky lady. So
yes.
I think we have another big question to go over, which is, big question. I believe it's who is your Spider-Girl, right? Or who is your favorite character from the movie?
Sure. I'll throw it up and give me 1 sec.
Of course. What I'm about to say, did you know it or something? And you're just sitting there laughing at me. Which Spider-Girl or Ezekiel did you thwip with the most? I'm super into Ezekiel from the comics. And so we saw this with a group of us, and some people had experience with the characters and some people didn't. But what I thought was most interesting is how the boyfriend was with us, and he was like, hey, I think that if you don't know that this movie is about those characters from the comics, you're not going to walk away disappointed. It's just an action movie. It's fine. It's fun. I agree, because that was so far from Ezekiel that it kind of felt like they didn't do Ezekiel yet. So I can't pick him. So if I'm gonna pick somebody, I really found myself relating to Araña. I think Anya was just so busy trying to figure out how to be right. She was unwilling to have a good time, and then when she was forced to have a good time, she had a great time. And she was just awesome. She was smart. She was funny. She had some great lead moments, and I want to see a character have agency like that. Also, the math guy in me loves that she's wearing a shirt that says "I eat math for breakfast." Love that they showed that she was technologically gifted. Big fan. So I'm about that Anya Cortisone life. Hey, what's up, Aranya girl? I love you.
I am gonna pick the GOAT, mother herself, Dakota Johnson, Cassandra Webb. Well,
that's not the truth, TK. She's not quite Cassandra Webb.
She truly is not quite Cassandra Webb. But man, did I love her performance in this film. I really liked the character. I think the idea of an actor acting in a movie that they clearly find absurd as a character that finds themselves in a situation that they clearly find absurd, and just nobody in this chain of creating fiction feels that this is supposed to be happening, but is just gonna get to the end regardless, I'm just so tickled and charmed by. It annoyed the shit out of me the way that this is, in a lot of ways, Cassandra Webb, the old lady who, just monologues all over 90s and 80s Spider comics, but then at the same time is vaguely present day in comics Julia Carpenter. That absolutely bothered me in previews. I was just so annoyed by it. And in the film, there are a lot of things where it's like you could have just hewn much closer to the comic and this probably would have been a little bit better of a film. That is one thing. The weird choices they made with Cassandra Webb, Julia Carpenter, and everything actually, genuinely, for me, I think probably was the better way to go about things. And it just leaves me with a character that I find very authentically rootable for. I really did root for her in this movie, even though I think there are a lot of ways in which you could be like, nobody cared less about the outcome of this film than its main character, so you can't convince me to care either.
Kevo, who was your favorite character in this episode of New Girl?
It's hard to say. I enjoyed most of this movie. This movie gave me like 80% of a good movie and 20% of I'm not even sure what. I did. I liked Cassie a lot, but the moments that didn't connect for me with the character were really, 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 really strong anchors. They really pulled it down. The moments where she didn't deliver were really hard. She brought something very human to this, and I liked that. And all the kids did. I feel like if I want to pick who I feel is my actual favorite, it's like the unit of the four of them, because I feel like each of them give the promise of a stronger character, and this is like a preemptive to a really good movie in some weird ways. And I don't know if maybe that was even part of the intention, or maybe it's just the unnecessary, unintentional and unavoidable fallout of trying to create this sort of prequel style story of you can't fully bake characters if we want to see them grow later.
I mean, I think you make a really good point in that they really are greater than the sum of their parts.
Well, along with the fifth girl, New York City.
She is the fifth bitch at this table, 100%.
The fifth girl, Ben Parker.
The fifth girl, a Pepsi sign across the...
No, and now that we've watched Morbius...
the Pepsi sign!
No, now that we've watched Morbius, and they literally do the same fucking thing in
Yeah.
Morbius.
That them signs do be dangerous in Sony's Spider-Man universe.
I wish that Jordan Catalano couldn't look at things at this point.
Don't get me started.
That's a real landmark, though. So I was like,
I know it
"No,
absolutely
don't
is.
do it."
You're absolutely right though in that like there is a degree to which they are greater than the sum of their parts in a way that's really cool, but I think by the time the movie realizes it, it's a little too late and it spends a little too much time getting you there rather than sort of finding a way to just make them, yes, Jonah, the fifth girl, the cola warehouse filled with explosives and fireworks for some reason. She really helped to fight that bad guy.
You could have only made this more Northeast if at some point they had to sell Gertrude Hawk candy for a band trip.
And
or like, Ezekiel choked one of them with a Nathan's hot dog.
I feel like the Coca-Cola factory that is dilapidated and filled with fireworks is even like part of where, you're watching a comic book movie. And if you don't want to watch a comic book movie, don't go fucking watch a comic book movie. And if you're watching a comic book movie, there's going to be silly stuff in it, like there's this abandoned fireworks factory. Ask Nico. Ask both of them, really. But I always think of the Billy Club as the more old ones. But even when you guys were doing MC2, which people can check out the coverage from MC2 and Spider-Girl from there, there's always random silly crap like that in comic books, and you either accept that you're watching a comic book movie or you don't. You want to make a good one, and you want to make it believable, and you want to make it like something that isn't too ridiculously over the top. But like Ben Parker, and then this pregnant woman is there, and gee, I wonder who she's pregnant with, and they don't ever say his name, but we know because it's a comic book.
Oh,
It is our Lord Savior Tom Holland's ass. And, that's comic books, baby. And you either accept that of it or you don't. And if you don't, then just leave it alone.
I'm now desperate for, hey, everybody, it's me, Spider-Muse! That would be... that would be everything to me. Okay, no one's with me. What I do want to talk...
I don't get it.
It's Candy Muse as a Spider-Girl.
Oh, that's why I didn't get it.
Because you said, baby!
Now I'm laughing.
That is not the world's best Candy Muse impression. I want to throw that out there.
No, that's
right
not
now.
why I say it.
Well, I know you say solar opposites anyway, so I want to just keep moving.
Yeah, let's do that.
This is a great time to start talking about the fact that I think that Peak Jonah, when we saw the film, had something really correct to his observation that this movie is deeply mismarketed.
Mm-hmm.
The girls are in their costumes for 30 seconds of a flash forward in the beginning-ish of the movie, and then they're in their costumes for about 14 seconds of a flash forward at the end of the movie, and they are on Coke cups and in those costumes, or I'm sorry, Pepsi, and they are it is
an ocean spray bottle in Japan exclusively,
where we got to see their costume reveals, and everybody, like Bleeding Cool was just like, guys, we got it this time, we did it. For those who watched Newsroom, we did it, we got Obama.
The movies are
we
back.
saved Gabrielle Giffords from death with our news.
No, with Coldplay's Fix You. Get it together. So,
I literally just turned that one off. Literally 5 minutes ago.
Coldplay's Fix You can save anything except Caleb's heart.
Mm-hmm.
And Coldplay's career.
So, I do want to say this. Deeply mismarketed, and now being deeply mishandled.
Mm-hmm.
Listen well.
Well, first off, hold on. The studio and Sony is mishandling this film. Dakota Johnson is single-handedly handling it perfectly.
No, she's the person she's like literally coming forward and being like, I don't believe in what's out there. And I'm like, but then why are we seeing this movie? Then why are we talking about it?
It's entertaining, but what is it doing to help the movie?
And what is it doing
where
to
Nico's
help?
coming from?
how is it helping the people that were on this movie if the star is bad-mouthing the production? And how does it help those actresses that she's supposed to be sisters with if she's saying they're in a bad movie that she didn't believe in by the end? And how is
And,
it helping
like-
comic book movies if she is tearing down this project that was supposed to be one of 2 big films heralding women in comic movies in the last 5 years?
And
I
then
think-
why did you do it? And then at what point are artists responsible for helping to make sure that the art that they participate in that comes out isn't bad, instead of turning around and saying, fuck it, I hated making that movie?
So here's what I will say. You guys aren't wrong, but I don't think Sony is handling this well at all. And I think they have been really kind of inauthentic and very
That's all fair.
boring and very unremarkable with how they market this film and how they've approached it. I think they, in a lot of ways, very clearly gave up on it.
And how they
Well-
handle a lot of Spider-Man in general. Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
I think they
And
gave up at
so-
Morbin time.
Exactly. And so to have the lead actor come in, and if you really look at all of the quotes, I don't feel she has ever said it's a bad movie. I think she has said a lot of stuff that you can only take away like, that sounds chaotic. They clearly made some really drastic changes that she wasn't aware of.
Well, can I ask a question?
Well, so
In
hold
reg-
on. Let me just
Yeah,
say
absolutely.
one thing first. So I feel as though she has been charmingly realistic about what we have on our hands, and I feel as though the amount of smiles and like genuine now I kind of want to know what this is about. If this is how infamously memeable Dakota Johnson is talking about it, I've got some questions. And at least I'm getting something real from somebody. Yeah.
I think my question is then, when she says, I signed up for a good movie, there were changes made. What is there to take away but she doesn't like this movie and she thinks it's bad? What is there to take away from her saying, I signed up for something good and then was made to make this? That's where I'm a little puzzled, because her lack of support is like literally the kids in the movie theater behind us were snickering about the movie the whole time. And we're like, we know this is going to be horrible. And the cast doesn't even like it. And so I do kind of wonder the validity of a world where the actors are coming out against the film by being super sarcastic about it.
It's tough because we'll never know if she had just gone on a standard press tour, if that would have made people be more like, okay, I'll see it. I don't think it would have. My feeling is that it wouldn't have. My feeling is that she might have read a very compelling script. And I think there's a lot of good stuff about this movie. I think I rate it even higher than you do, Nico. But I can see where, as an actor, you would maybe have read the script and maybe even done the script. Because, I was just, I even bookmarked it somewhere, possibly to reference at this moment. But I just saw this great, monologue or, interview answer given by Frances McDormand, where she talks about how film is an editor's medium. It really does not matter what happens until the editing process. What you have before editing starts is the block of clay. And editing is the process of sculpting the film. And so Dakota Johnson might have liked this when they delivered the block of clay, and then, post-production and editing and producers beyond her might have really said, well, this is how we're cutting it to make it suitable in whatever way. And, there's a lot that I think doesn't work, that I can believe that this actor thought worked when she signed on for it. And maybe it is not always the best thing to come out so blasé, but this is a case where, I feel like Sony has just so mismanaged the Sony Spider-Man universe that, and they kind of just keep not acknowledging it. The fact that, a great example being that we don't know the name of Emma Roberts' baby. They didn't specifically name that baby Peter so that nobody would ever have, if they just decide to forget this movie, no one will ever have to be like, but what happened to baby Peter, who's very clearly going to become Spider-Man? We now have the option to completely ignore that baby or turn that baby into Spider-Man. And I feel like that's kind of a very execs made that decision choice. And so, you know, I respect her coming out just a little bit more authentic, a little more realistic, a little more relatable when it comes to talking about the movie.
I really hear that. I think part of my thought is when you agree to be a person in like Hollywood,
yeah,
and you agree to this thing where like a lot of people's livelihoods are on the line, and this could kill any one of these three women's careers right up here on the screen by being a bomb.
Not Sydney Sweeney's, but the other two for sure.
I mean, we've seen bigger stars fall a whole lot harder, a whole lot faster from one really bad flop.
Yeah.
And, you know, think about how quickly Dakota Johnson's father, was relegated to the scrap heap simply because he was responsible for a style that was now dated. And that was really like one of the things that made him no longer cool. I think part of my expectation is there's a fiduciary responsibility because her comments contributed to, I'm sure, now there won't be as many Spider-Girl titles. And
yeah,
there's a chain reaction.
I have already seen a headline saying that they are revamping Silk to gear more toward a male audience.
And that's where we are, where there is a responsibility of these people to think about the bigger picture and the lack of solidarity with the film. You could even say, yeah, I really hope we get a director's cut that's going to show all of that amazing stuff, but that it's been this, actually, that's not the truth, Spider-Girl kind of attitude about it has been a little hard for me as somebody who enjoyed the film, but it was kind of dumb, but liked it, and has felt that the main star, that every headline I've gotten has been Dakota Johnson slams film, Dakota Johnson slams film, Dakota Johnson says, this is not the film I made. It's been tough to want to go see it at that point. So, speaking of things that made it tough, it is about the editing process, because we know they de-Spider-Man'd this, but then they de-Spider-Man'd this. And then that kind of becomes my question. Number one, I don't think that's Tyrese doing Calvin Klein up on the billboard, but it would have been really funny because Tyrese is then in Morbius.
Yeah.
But
and I think period appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think that would have worked.
That's why I'm like, 2003, Tyrese, sweet lady, would you be mine? It would have been great.
Yeah. So what was the question in there?
Okay, good.
Well, no, Kevo, what you got?
Well, stuff like that was also part of what makes this whole, what was the movie, when was the movie, they wanted Andrew Garfield, but there's a lot of really on the nose, it's 2003 stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't even know.
Weirdly, their two music cues are Breakfast at Tiffany's, which is 1995, 96. And then there's like another, it's like Tracy Bonham or somebody that's like only a couple years later. But then it's Toxic. Like the song that they're all dancing to is Toxic, which is exactly 2003.
Which I think they only wanted because Spider-Girls being sexy is toxic. It's Toxin, Spider-Girl.
Well, and it is such an exactly 2003 song. I mean, it was a really good choice. It was just as soon as I heard Breakfast at Tiffany's in the background when they're like eating lunch together, I was just like, wait, so did they at some point think this was going to be 1997? And then they kind of changed it later. There were a lot of questions like that. I thought this was such a slam dunk as a Spider-Man prequel film. If the timing is correct, which I guess it is, if Tom Holland Spider-Man is born in 2003, I think mathematically that works.
Let me check, actually.
Thank you.
You know, Well, because that's one of the things. Just to briefly go over the rewrites. At one point, this was going to have Andrew Garfield in it. At one point, this was going to have Tom Holland in it.
Yeah.
At
I mean, it doesn't work for Andrew Garfield at all because that's 2010 is his first one.
I think it was actually that was when it was going to be a result of the Spider-Man going around the multiverse, because at the end of Morbius, Adrian Toomes, who is not a player in the NFL, it turns out, better known as the Vulture, is transported to the Venomverse and immediately rebuilds his wings. But there's like characters bouncing around realities now because of multiverse shenaniganery, and that's how we get Venom making a guest appearance in a Spider-Man movie or something. So
it's all really up there, but
And
this one
2001.
Oh, he would have to have been born in 2001.
No, just yeah. So close enough, really.
Yeah. I thought it would have worked as a Spider-Man film. I really would like the idea of the sequel showing a Spider-Man meeting all three of these women fully formed as a squad under Cassandra Webb. I also thought genre-wise, and actually my partner picked this up before I did in the theater, this essentially was a horror movie. This essentially was a slasher flick. This is essentially like the killer is coming for us. We have to hide. And because it really never gets into superhero-ness or spiderdom until the very end, it kind of primarily works as a slasher flick. And that's another one of those things where, like, that's mostly in the editing. And it sort of surprised me once I looked at it that nobody involved in production sort of got that and either toned it down so that it was maybe a little more action-oriented, or turned it up and kind of made this a genre movie.
I think in that regard, I would say then one of the biggest problems with Madam Web that you can boil it down to is that they aren't really sure what movie they want it to be.
100%.
I think exactly what you're saying. When you point out that as a genre, I think that definitely works for it. But it's also trying to be a girly power movie, and it's also trying to be like kind of 90s comedy thing with the EMTs, and it's trying to be too many things, and that is a huge part of it. And if it could have just committed to a few solid ones and dug in, it might have come out a lot more coherent.
Quick question. The implication at the beginning of the film when Adam Scott tells her that he's met someone is that they were fucking before he met who is obviously May.
Yeah, that is what I...
Right?
So if I can just... Okay, I see you, but then I want to talk about some of the early setup of this film and some of the draft problems.
Well, and I think it's meant to be really up in the air. You know, in part I hear what you were saying about them not committing to saying that it was definitely Peter, but I feel like they wanted there to be things in this that we could decide for ourselves while still giving enough to let us draw certain conclusions. I don't know, because I didn't read a ton of romantic chemistry between Ben Parker and Cassie. I think it could be there. I think you could read him delivering that news as, you're a loser and I'm your only friend, and I'm telling you I'm probably going to start pulling away because I'm actually committing to a relationship. And that's how a person like Cassie would react to their platonic friend behaving that way. And, you know, I think that's a fascinating character choice. I think you can read into it that they had some kind of relationship and that that's what he's saying. But even down to the fact that they don't say, her name is May, the fact that we don't meet her, it's to allow us to draw our own conclusions. That might be the woman he ends up with, or it might not be.
I'm a little fascinated that I've never realized that they're May and Mary before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on that note, part of the problem with this film is look at that credit line, right? So people know an ampersand means that the two people working together are legally bound. Matt Sazama and Burke Sharpless are one writing pair who will split that proceed.
Yes,
Whereas
they are.
Hiram Sangha, by being the first name and having the word and between their groupings, is credited as a writer where 49% of their work remains in some point for which Sazama and Sharpless interacted with that script at some point.
And to underline what you're saying, you read the storyline, and under screenplay, first is Sazama and Sharpless, followed by A and D, and another pair of names.
That was, perfect. That had been my point. So, just a lot of writers. Sure. And so, I think that's one of the things that's of note, how many people went over this script and changed it at some point. And so I really think that, it's hard to tell whose film this was at some point. The person who storied it was off the film. And then, other sets of names came in. And while true, it's really great to see that last name is the director's name. Then the director was on site for this. The director made this movie. I wonder how much the director, S.J. Clarkson, was making this film to be part of a cinematic universe, to be a standalone film, and just how that all works out. Because we know that's why Edgar Wright essentially walked away from Ant-Man. Edgar Wright literally didn't want to make an MCU film, wanted to make a movie that did not matter to its universe. And Marvel was like, we can't have that. But Sony was trying to not be Marvel. So maybe Sony said, yeah, you know what? Make your own movie and we'll figure it out later. And maybe the edits aren't where we think they are.
I mean, it's particularly of note that Sharpless and what the other guy,
Sazama.
Thank you, worked on both Morbius and Power Rangers, as well as Gods of Egypt.
They are the only screenwriters on Morbius.
Yeah.
They are story only on Power Rangers.
Yeah.
They are the only screenwriters on Gods of Egypt. And unfortunately, they are also the showrunners and executive producers on Netflix's Lost in Space, which I adored.
Yeah.
I really loved their work on that.
So good.
And I like Power Rangers 2017, but, again, underscore story only, not script. And they were responsible, it seems, for the entirety of the script for Morbius.
Yeah.
And then
so they're playing around a lot with universes. Something like Power Rangers, we really didn't know if we were going to get more, but it certainly tried to leave its options open. Morbius is in some way trying to integrate into something. And that goes beyond two story writers. Sony really does not know what it's doing with the Spider-Man universe. But S.J. Clarkson, the director, has done episodes of Defenders. She's done episodes of Jessica Jones. She's also done like Succession. She's done Orange is the New Black. She's done Bates Motel. So, I mean, Smash, Dexter. I mean, she has a significant directorial catalog, a bunch of which is tangential to Marvel in that way. I think the Netflix Marvelverse, before those characters got reintegrated and we're now seeing a whole other side of it, but I thought they did a really beautiful job of figuring out how to be Marvel related. Not the MCU, but related. There's just a couple moments throughout the Netflix shows that they kind of give the indication that something happened in New York, so they're not going to ever say the Battle of New York when the Chitauri came. But like, I think they talk about how because of the incident or something, like Wilson can buy real estate more easily. There's a couple references that are just like New York's in the state of flux, and that's basically all you need. And so, I mean, it's just that this is clearly a director who has handled this type of material, and I think seemed prepared from a lot of the decisions in this film to make it a part of a cohesive universe, it feels like forces above her head really got cold feet when it came to whether or not this actually would be part of a cohesive universe.
And I only want to interact with, number one, I'm really sorry, TK, if my fervor for defending this film came out at you. I'm also kind of sorry if it came out at Dakota Johnson. I don't think Dakota Johnson is the devil, but we all know no corporation backs anything. Corporations only care about money. And so the minute this movie didn't have good advance, this movie was dead. And, Rich, came to the theater with us and he saw the movie, like I said, and he was like, what do you mean it's already going to be a failure? And I'm like, they do these number projections. They figure these things out in advance. They know what it's going to be and they can get it right usually within 5-10%. Every now and then there's an astronomical outlier like Endgame, but like these films, they can predict things. And the thing that I never want to say that makes me sound a little bit like a tin hat kind of guy, but they will decide that something should die. And when they decide something should die, they start putting out the word, manage expectations. And they start pulling back on marketing and they start pulling back on product placement. And you see the chain of abandonment. And Sony abandoned this project the day they made the mistake of its Morbin time. The day those executives, there's two things in my lifetime that I think of as memes led to suicide. And they are GameStonk and it's Morbin time, where some people lost some 7-figure jobs. And like, just as a result of funny memeing. And like, it is crazy how hard the studio abandoned this film way in advance, to the point where if it weren't for the fact that Aaron Taylor is famous for his Johnson, I'm not sure that Craven would be something that we were still craving. But we've been told that that's what's coming next and we're still on it. And so like, it's hard not to see how this movie was a road bump in Sony's success with this Spider franchise.
Yes, and it's also hard to see how Sony is on a road to success with their Spider franchise. They definitely hit a road bump with this film.
Bring back the Disc Man.
I mean, for real. They definitely hit a bump with this film, but I don't know that it was on the road to success. I think they might want to believe that, but they have no exit strategies. They have no long-term plan. They don't have a Spider-Man. Do they technically own Tom Holland and do they technically produce those movies? Absolutely. Those movies are MCU movies.
But so does Zendaya, you know what I mean?
Yes. Those movies are MCU movies. Marvel rents them a chair in the barbershop that, are they fantastically good at doing high fade? Yes, absolutely. But for some reason, they couldn't make it on their own. They can't do it on their own. They have to have this Spider-Man integrated into the MCU, and then they can't figure out what to do without that. They haven't had a successful film that is not in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and they haven't figured out how to tie their films to anything that is engaging or matters. And I'm at this point just a little bit bewildered because I went through all of the recent stuff, Morbius, both Venoms, and Madam Web over this weekend, and I don't think there's nothing there. I actually don't think there's anything where it's just like, this absolutely should not even be made. I think Craven is the first one that I actually feel that way about, and it's kind of only because you guys keep failing. You shouldn't make another one because you clearly can't do this. It's not even because...
I think that's such a weird character in the first place as well, to be doing a property about.
It definitely is, but I don't think it's weirder than Morbius. I think...
That's fair.
I don't. I mean, like, you can...
I don't want to argue. I want to ask you a question because like, you're somebody whose opinion I super care about. I'm in the car with Jonah, right? And he's like, I don't know why they haven't been able to make. God, who did he say? And he's like, I don't know why they haven't been able to make them work.
Villain or hero?
I just can't even think of it now. But I was like,
Isn't
great.
he in the house?
No.
No.
And I was like, great. Name their famous story. Oh, Black Cat. He said,
Oh,
Black Cat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
specifically Black
Great.
Cat.
Do me a favor. Name the most famous Black Cat story. I'll wait. And he was like, and I was like, great. Okay. But you know what? Name any Venom story. Great. Name any this person's story, that person's story. Almost everybody that's in these things. And when you think of Craven, you think of the story where Craven turned a shotgun on himself. And every Craven since has been a clone or a resurrection. And like, they're trying to make him a hero. But, you know, and like TK, I my question for you this whole setup.
Yeah.
What stake do you have in good guy Craven movies while the guy in the comics is still hunting Wolverine for sport?
You know, it's really funny because when I think about it, there's a whole thing where Craven is actually very good friends with Squirrel Girl.
Yes, that is a thing.
And that's it. That's the only stake I have in it, which I'm like, they're not going to do that. Like, for one thing, they can't. They don't have the rights to Squirrel Girl. They're not going to do a funny, like, there are...
Well, because I'm not convinced of what they're going to end up doing with the character in the film anyway. We're saying they're going to make him a hero, but in this day and age, with this level of anti-hero that we have, I don't know what level of baddie this guy's going to end up being, even if he's the headliner of the film.
Yeah, he's going to be a weird, no matter what, it's anti-hero or villain, and how that ties into being a conservationist, but he's also a hunter. Like, the thing is, you know, in comics starting in the 70s, being a big game poacher is like not the most evil villain
No, that's
can
just
dream
being a
up.
Trump brother.
Yeah, that's not really, you know, even now that's not a huge thing. But in the 70s, that was like, oh, you know, who cares about elephant ivory? That's just a guy who knows how to kill good. Now, if you put a man who is like, I legitimately want to go in the jungle to kill things that you see in memes and think are adorable, everybody's going to be like, fuck Thanos, we got to kill that guy. That's the worst guy in the universe. So now he's Kraven the hunter, but he's actually kind of Kraven the conservationist. Like, he knows how to kill the evil anacondas, but he actually wants to save the good ones.
He's going to be a lower level Thanos is right.
I mean, yeah, at best. But how, and then, you know, taking it back to Morbius has no qualms with a potential Spider-Man. Morbius isn't a villain or an anti-hero in that film. He sucks. He's boring.
No, he's Batman.
He's Batman. Exactly. He's not a villain of any sort. So when Adrian Toomes shows up and is like, we should definitely kill Spider-Man, and he goes, I'm listening, it is now suddenly an entirely different character. And I just sort of feel like I can't really see watching a Craven movie that doesn't end the same way, where I'm like, oh, well, this guy is a hero, so why does he want to fight and beat the shit out of a 16-year-old?
And I just want to, before I'm going to interact that in 1 second. Cyborg, I haven't unfortunately seen that Ghostbusters. I think Ghostbusters is kind of an overblown franchise.
I saw it. I think Madam Web was better.
I would say that Madam Web is no worse or better than Venom 2. So,
I mean, they're a weird thing to conflate. There's really nothing other than women to conflate them for.
Maybe even Venom 2 is worse. Venom 2 is a hard to watch movie for me. I thought it was pretty stupid. Couldn't hold my attention.
It was pretty stupid. It couldn't hold my attention. Andy Serkis directed it, and I could see where it was trying to be really fun. And
which one? Ghostbusters or Venom 2?
Venom 2.
Oh, good. Okay.
And Andy Serkis directed it. I could see where he was trying to be really fun. I don't think he 100% succeeded, but like, I thought there were not enough moments.
Well, we're going to talk about, not to cut you off too quickly, but when we do, we will be talking about all the Spider movies eventually.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I was going into Madam Web. I could see moments in Madam Web where somebody was, and again, this is the editing, you know, film is an editor's medium. I think a lot was filmed that was meant to be more fun and a little more lighthearted. That kind of got cut to get this film down to 2 hours, which is insane.
An hour 54 with no post-credit scene. Oh my God, that's like no leg room on a long flight. I can't do it.
And I love what your point is drawing my attention to, which is, there's the unevenness of tone where there's lighthearted stuff like we're dancing on a table to Toxic, but you keep pointing to, but is it a slasher movie? Which, what tone?
Well, and you could have that Toxic scene in a slasher movie. It's more like the scene where they're all in the woods and they're just awkward. She doesn't know how to be around kids.
You wouldn't like it when I'm hangry.
Sydney Sweeney doesn't also know how to be around her peers. She just blurts out, I know Taekwondo. She's the I like turtles kid, but as a sexy schoolgirl.
Okay. So we saw this with literally 14 high school friends in the row behind us.
Yeah.
They were there to, one, make fun of Dakota Johnson till she felt bad about herself. They were cruel about her and her performance.
Yeah.
The first thing I heard any of them say excitedly was 9 of the girls all at once went, sweetie! Yeah. And like they were one note of joy for this woman. And I have to be honest, I've seen her, but where do I know her from?
Euphoria.
I don't know her. No.
Oh, she's that girl.
Yes.
Her hair's so weird here.
Yeah, for no reason, because I think
unrecognizable.
I think they thought they would make it comic accurate. Weird thing to try and make comic accurate,
especially when you don't even get her fucking name right.
Yeah.
Julia Cornwall.
Which I assume that her mother in Lockup is Carpenter, and they just never explained it. But probably. it was a very weird thing to say. Yeah, I mean, like there is that thing of like, I think gays over 30 loved this movie for Dakota Johnson, and I
love Carly Rae Jepsen for Carly Rae Jepsen.
And I can see how if you are, a teenager, she just seems like a miserable dick. And yeah, you probably like somebody like Sydney Sweeney, who is what?
Is Dakota Johnson Bernie Sanders?
In a lot of ways, yeah.
Coastal gays love her, but she seems like a dick.
Yeah, there you go.
No, Larry David. That's who she is.
She is very Larry David.
That's not the truth, Elmo.
She's 34.
I think there's actually there is a lot here for everyone, and I don't know. I respect that about it. I respect that it gave us Shoshana from Girls as the girl in the chair, just completely out of nowhere.
Unless we were about to find out her last name is Smythe, I have a humongous problem with her.
Truly a waste of a character not being part of the universe.
Truly, the reason my face looked like that, Kevo, thank you for sharing me her age. I truly thought she was 24, and in some ways,
Dakota Johnson?
She's so fucking young looking. She has such a beautiful, unbelievably flawless line work here.
I thought she was older because I thought that she's younger than I am, and I thought I remembered them. Well, I guess that would make sense. I thought anyway.
I felt like I actually didn't see slasher in this at all. I saw John Hughes coming of age film in this the entire time. I thought this was like an uplifting 80s story, and I turned to Kevo a couple of times and I was like, this is a period piece, right? And he was like, yes, the 90s. And I was like, right. And then when we watched Morbius, and I was like, this is the 80s, right? And he was like, no, they've referenced Venom twice. And
then why don't they have cell phones, is what he said.
I got so mad.
Yeah,
Morbius was not good.
There's a lot of nonsense floating around.
So here's I think we probably need to move on to the next thing we're going to do. I think the thing I want to say the most about this is an episode of New Girl. Jessica Day is in the middle, and you've got Coach on the left, and you've got Schmidt all the way on the right, and in the middle, you've got Nick. And this is a great episode of New Girl. I think the biggest problem is it wasn't a movie called The Slingers. Slingers is a very specific comic moment in history. It is a moment of the 90s that like tastes like reality bites with spider thwip. And this was that. They captured something here that is magic, that is special, that is different. They just kind of captured it with an old Kodak camera, so it looks like hell. So this is a C+ for me. I want to give the intent an A. I really want to give the movie a D because they cut all of the dialogue that made things like understanding she was paralyzed at the end make any sense. Everybody, Rich turns to me and just goes, "Oh, I didn't understand she was in a wheelchair." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's just not clear."
Yeah, I was like, I guess she can't walk because she's blind.
It was a choice, but
Which is then hilarious because when she sees herself with them in the future, in the most insane glasses in the history of a superhero franchise,
no,
I'm
they
obsessed
are
with them.
They are bat mitzvah party glasses. I know because I got them.
I am obsessed. I think this is my Halloween costume and possibly my FlameCon costume.
Oh my God! You pick the girl. I'll be her as a boy.
I'm going as Cassandra Webb
No,
for
right,
the glasses.
you pick my
alone.
boy. Pick my boy.
I see.
If I can find a picture.
I don't think you can. I meant to download a pirate copy of it just so I could see the glasses because it's just the best part of the movie. But she's also standing there, so I don't know. Or maybe I'm remembering it wrong. Anyway, she looks like she's standing here. She's in costume here. Anyway,
She looks like she should teach a music school and then go flirt with her boyfriend Nick. She looks so much like Zooey Deschanel. I can't stand it.
I don't agree, but I'm not good to talk about that subject with. So I give this a B-. I hope this is a prequel. I think this should get a sequel. I would love to see these girls in full action as these characters. It's funny because these four don't come together like this in any moment in history. And actually, I kind of now want that comic as well. Fantastic get, Kevo.
Amazing grabs, Kevo.
Fantastic
what a
get, Kevo.
perfect shot of Maddie.
Heroes Unbound on Twitter.
Thank you,
Heroes Unbound. And Kevo, great find. What a great shot of Maddie, who it's so hard
why
to
would
find
I
that
make this if
costume.
someone else made a great one? Fuck it.
Yeah, no, when somebody makes an image this perfect, why waste your time?
Yeah.
That is such a perfect image of the original Araña carapace. No, it's the carapace look without the carapace. That's Julia in the hair that matters. That's Maddie in the only super spider costume I care about her in. And it's Madam Web at the correct age. This is brilliant.
I would love to see these characters together now. I would love to see these characters together in the comics. I really hope we get that because all four of them have been underserved and I think could have some real fun where we are in the Spider-Verse. But I really would love to see the future that she flashes forward to, and I would love to see Spider-Man interact with them. It would be sort of amazing to see a humbled Peter Parker, this kind of lonely, stupid boy who I think even the idea that he has to do all this on his own is now very silly compared to where it was when it started. And to have that be addressed by a bunch of women who are like, we've been doing this together since literally you were born. So you're fine. Like, we'll take care of you and we'll show you the spider ropes. That could be a really interesting way to make this a thing. And just last thought based on what Nico said, I both want a real Slingers movie now. Like if they're going to do this, they should do, or a Slingers show. Like, give me a Slingers show.
Cast me as Ricochet. I'm ready.
Really, really and truly. The other thing this reminded me of and a Slinger show would remind me of and I think would be really fun, Birds of Prey, CW 2001, 2002, a world in which Batman existed and
ate pussy.
And definitely at least had to have a little, because I don't think you'd go through the process of getting that kid out if he hadn't, at least gone down on it once or twice. But you never see Batman. You never see Catwoman. They're out. It is Alfred and a group of side characters, and I think if they're never going to show Peter Parker, which it seems like they're not, we're never going to get not Tom Holland in an MCU movie as Spider-Man. So I don't know what they're doing there, but doing a whole world in which like somehow Spider-Man existed, but now it's all these other people that are the only ones we see, could be really interesting. There's a lot I'm willing to give them if they'll just figure it out.
I love everything you're saying, and I even really think and hope and wish, and I feel like one of the best things they could possibly do is just bring in a not Tom Holland Peter Parker. And it doesn't have to be an insult to Tom Holland's Peter Parker. It doesn't have to be the end of his. I'd love to see him team up with these characters, but it can also just be like not a big deal to introduce a new Peter Parker. Don't make him suck, but he can be a secondary or tertiary character in a story that focuses more on this team of Spider Women helping him learn the ropes, so to speak. There's a lot you can do with it, and I think what would help with it in a lot of ways is allowing ourselves to be a little bit less precious about these castings. You know, I am thinking more and more about what you said, because it really stuck with me about them not naming Peter. And I think the one moment that it really stuck with me, that it was such a weird moment not to do it, was at the baby shower. And they were doing the dumb baby shower game, which, like, again, some of the sequences in the movie, are really awkward. You're not sitting in the middle of a baby shower and all of a sudden someone's like, let's play the game where we guess what the baby's name is going to be.
Wait,
Sam.
I just want to interrupt. My parents died, so you should feel weird senses of mortality.
I thought that was such a hilariously stupid moment, because I've never heard of a baby shower game where you talk about your fondest memory of your mother, but just that, like, one girl,
Spider-Man and Party Down. Stop it.
It's one girl gives her. You draw one girl's memory, and then you draw. Dakota Johnson has just shown up at this party, has absolutely not had time to write this down anyway.
My parents are dead, so I didn't write anything.
Nothing. Because she didn't have a mom, and then announces that to the party.
I thought it was so, I mean, it's terrible writing, and the fact that it got left in the movie that ran too long anyway. Nobody.
So they're playing a game where you have to guess the baby's name, and as Cassie's in the middle of coming into predicting the future, and as they are tap dancing around this baby being Peter Parker, we assume she's going to blurt out the name Peter because we all know who that is. And then no, they don't do that. Yep. And that is just, that right there is the example for me of where this movie just didn't know what it was doing, didn't know where to land its own stuff. And so, yeah, it was just really weird.
So, Mr. Riley, what do you give the movie?
I guess probably a C or something. I'm still digesting on that front.
The thing I do want to say is, if you are a fan of comic Spider-Verse, and I mean like the Web of Life and Destiny kind of stuff, this was like the most fulfilling movie in the whole wide world for me in that regard. This is just like, and then we'll meet her Spider-Man. We'll meet this Cassie Webb Spider-Man, and he will be so inferior to her that he won't even be the character we care about in the Spider-Verse arc. It is this Madam Web as a 90-minute movie. I'm sorry, as a 90-page comic. See, because it was like, it should have been a 90-minute movie, but as a 90-page comic, this thing would have fucking blown the walls off of it, like everything at Marvel. This would have changed everything for Spider-Verse. They just unfortunately could not have gotten Dakota Johnson's energy for the comic, so it only makes sense that they tried to make it a movie. And the scenes where she, for me, the scenes where she shined were the scenes in the beginning where she was being a paramedic, where she was being a friend, where she was being an awkward real woman. The scenes where it all clunked were where Ezekiel just sort of kicked people and then sat there.
So hot and was so bad.
You know, again, Peak Jonas said something in the car on the way home. He said that it was really great that Ezekiel felt physically threatening, but didn't have one of those like Roid God bodies, which, not coming for Roid God bodies, I love them. But like, it was really cool to see this guy in this really kind of humanly attainable shape be treated as a threat, be treated as an actual menace. And I thought that, you can see the man behind him on the billboard. And frankly, when we saw Ezekiel in bed, his body was not quite as cut as the guy on the billboard. And that in and of itself offers us a sort of peer into what they were trying to create here. They really were trying to create a film of realism. And if nothing else, this is the only film in the entirety of the Spider oeuvre that was for one moment concerned with realism. So, here's to Cassandra Webb trying to climb up the wall and sliding right down. All right, guys, are we ready to rate some Spider flicks?
Yeah.
Sure.
All right, let's start with Spider-Man 1. We're going to go through all the Spider films. And you know what? I just want to give a quick shout out to these amazing images originally drawn by Tori Sheehan. Reach out to her if you want some cool art, and amazingly colored by our very own Kevo. I love this amazing lineup of me as Ricochet, Kevo as Scarlet Spider, Jonah as Spider-Ham, and TK looking stupid hot as Venom. Definitely not a character I associate with you, but you should think about some Venom cosplays. It's a good look.
I talk to myself like I have a symbiote.
Do you talk in this voice?
I'm going to start now rewatching those movies. I honestly wish that they hadn't gotten him for what's it called? Moon Knight, and that F. Murray Abraham had been Venom.
I get that. My biggest problem with Venom is the plots of the film. But as you're going to find out from my scores,
yes,
I genuinely think they did a great job getting a good actor to play not remotely Eddie Brock. So,
yeah.
Kevo, I want to know what it was like for you when you saw Spider-Man for the first time. Where do you put it then? Where do you put it now? And how do you feel about sort of like the moment where Spider-Man became as legitimate as Batman when Spider-Man burst into the cultural vernacular with his first film?
Definitely feel different now than I did then. At the time, superhero movies were still so new and exciting. So it was a really cool thing, like I said, having grown up on Spider-Man the Animated Series. But I feel like even at the time, I was really, really, really underwhelmed with Tobey Maguire's very whispery performance of Peter Parker, with Kirsten Dunst's very maudlin performance of Mary Jane Watson. They didn't really feel like the characters that I was familiar with from that animated series. They did dramatic things on the animated show, but it wasn't quite the same levels that the comics had the opportunity to get through over the preceding 40 years. So, I understand for comic fans, there was probably a little bit more precedence for there ever being iterations of the characters like that. But for me, I mostly knew them as just the fun, sarcastic Peter, just the, lively party girl, Mary Jane. And so these characterizations were really, really, really not, didn't get me excited.
So now, all these years later, where do you put this film?
I want to say B, because it's not terrible or anything. And the Raimi Spider-Man films are very significant in terms of the cinematic history of superhero films. But I just can't rank it too high.
I really respect that. And other than, oh gosh, and I'm so sorry that I cannot think of her name, but she got her start as the landlord's daughter, and then
Zelda from The Magicians.
And I was about to say would go on to play Zelda on The Magicians. Yes. It is so great to be able to look back at the history of I don't know, sci-fi magic amazement, and to be amazed by the connections. You know, I remember seeing this with my dad. My dad was so cool. It's such a dumb thing to think was so cool, but my dad was like brave in what a nerd he was before it was super cool to be a nerd, and would wear like super stupid, because that's all they sold at the time, super stupid looking like Spider-Man t-shirts to like the movie theater, and would never say 2 for Spider-Man, please, but just go 2 tickets to the 12:30, and the person would know to give him 2 tickets to Spider-Man. So like, I think some of my memories of this are like, you know, my dad is the cool version of Uncle Ben that doesn't, you know, die from a bullet wound guy. Come on, grow some tougher skin. And I have to give this an A. There is that was a total joke. Anyone who's ever been shot, listen, I don't think you should be bulletproof. I give this an A. I think this really is a terrific example of a piece of art that dared to ask us to push our idea of what a superhero film could be. This was all of the silly things about a TV movie, but it was all of the seriousness of a Michael Keaton Batman. And I think Sam Raimi is that moment between Bruce Campbell in Evil Dead and Bruce Campbell in The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. to just helm this movie right. TK, grade me. No, don't grade me. God, I'm too fragile. Oh my God, never.
You're not ready.
Never
You're not
grade
ready.
me. Oh God.
We'll
Grade the
discuss at the
movie.
end of the semester.
Never. Grade the movie.
I'm going to be generous and say A, because I think this is probably the last time I'm going to be generous on this list. I've got a lot of fond memories. Hero by Chad Kroeger and Josie Scott really changed the game.
Isn't that
Spider?
two?
No,
No,
that's
that's
one. And then
She
I
was
just had a very Mandela effect moment where I thought the song for 2 was hands down by Dashboard Confessional, by far the more popular
No.
song, but it's Vindicated, by far the worse and stupider song. Still a banger, but hands down was really a good one. And I feel like I actually come from a universe where hands down was the song from the Spider-Man 2 soundtrack, and I have been shunted to a universe where it's Vindicated. It's okay. I'm going to figure this out and get back
to the Garfield universe. It's a
There
really
you go.
cool cover by any artist you want to name.
There you go. So I will go ahead and give this one an A. These early films pioneered a lot of stuff that would come later, and I'll give it big credit for that. I thought Tobey Maguire was a great Spider-Man.
He was the first ever time I was like, somebody can actually like double in size. Like the amount of effort he put in a world where Hugh Jackman hadn't made everybody feel really bad about not being vascular, and Chris Evans hadn't made everybody feel really bad about not being 300 pounds. Really, Tobey Maguire, he went from Pleasantville to this, and it's hard not to think that this is the guy who is ultimately best friends with Leonardo DiCaprio, who is just kind of cider house rules fine, not engaging with superhero-dom. But then to remember, this is why he's okay with that is also fascinating.
Yep.
All right, Spider-Man 2. So the average should be an A, I think, because 2 A's and a B. I think it averages an A. Reasonably.
I mean, we don't have an averager this time because Kevo's actually voting. Kevo knows this.
Because I'm actually voting this time. This isn't an averager. This is just my voting. But I think I'm actually going to bump it up to an A. And I can't do total results either because that's going to show like everything that's been voted on. So that'll be
that's okay. We'll check at the end.
Oh yeah, no, we'll have a good time. We are Kevo.
But yeah, I'm going to bump it up for now. Because this isn't getting the same courtesy.
This is a B. My problems with this movie are plentiful. Spider-Man 2 suffers from the fact that NYU did not want my acting audition, so I would have never been in Alfred Molina's class. So fuck him. No, I'm kidding. I never auditioned for NYU's theater department. I would never have gotten in. So I think really my problems with Spider-Man 2 is you can either treat the second film like it is the apex, like Empire Strikes Back, or you can treat the second film like it is the Temple of Doom, like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. This movie tried to average it and bored me to tears. This is not the banger the first one is. B.
Yeah, we're in sync with this one. And it's gonna, spoiler alert, we're gonna progress down the list. This is not a bad movie. It's just not a great movie. It's also one of those things where like the first one is pretty firmly turn of the millennium. Like there's a whole thing that happens from 99 to 2001. Like there's a 3-year period where there's like a microculture in and of itself of music, TV shows.
I refer to it as World Hive Mind Millennium Village.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I have playlists of pop and rock music that are specifically just 99 to 2001. And
it's all Crystal Waters Just Say Hey If It Feels All Right.
Well, the rock playlist is like it'd be too long to get into it, but I don't think anything outside of those boundaries is like what is inside of them. And Spider-Man uniquely was produced inside of those boundaries. It technically comes out in 2002, but it is very much right of that era. And then Spider-Man 2 is just outside of it. It's sort of pre My Chemical Romance defines what emo is, and a lot of dance and EDM starts to take over pop radio. Really good thing, but
God damn it, Ohio is for lovers and Cobra Starship is Midtown.
Yeah, I mean that's just not here yet, and we're just kind of in this no man's zone, and Spider-Man doesn't quite know what it wants to be. And
there was this weird era of filmmaking, yes, where a lot of things in the early 2000s still very much felt like they had been produced half in the 90s.
Yeah.
And it was just a very strange vibe for everything. We talked about it when we were studying Miss Congeniality recently, but there's a lot of movies like that. And I really hear what you're saying, and I feel like that's even part of what caused this Spider-Man trilogy to, you say decline. Fall off, but how you say decline, but like, and not at you, but at people who are like, there should have been a fourth movie, but like a trilogy was something that was a slam dunk still at this time. Yeah. And people are complaining that they didn't come back for a fourth. And that's something I never really wrapped my head around, other than the fact that I understand, and we'll get to that one next, but the third one just wasn't very good. People felt it wasn't a good note to end on. But like still, 3 movies, that's, I thought the trilogy was the holy grail.
Yep.
Did you say your rank for this one?
Yeah, it's a B.
Yeah, and I think the same. There are things I liked about this movie more than the first one in terms of, the characters a little bit better, so you're a little bit more comfortable with the world. But yeah, and then like as we're going into the next one, I say trilogy, but trilogy of what? What was even the focus of this story? What was even the through line other than what's his name wanting revenge, but then James Franco is James Franco, so it came across exactly as it came across. Oh, I hit A by accident. Oh, I'm so mad at myself. Anyway, what are your feelings on 3?
3 is, I was gonna say C. I actually think I'm gonna say D. 3 is bad in every way. It is just so misguided in understanding what made the Venom story interesting, what made the Venom story interesting when it happened so long ago would no longer make it interesting now, what they thought would make it interesting now was not what they thought it was.
And isn't technically every other person on that 70s show buffer and a worse human? So wouldn't literally
anybody else. Literally Laura Prepon in Drag King male drag.
I just want you to know I'm Venom and
she would have been a very tall, very saucy Eddie Brock, but I love it.
Okay, Kitty as Aunt May is the only.
Oh, she would have been fantastic.
It is the only casting that TV deserves.
Yeah.
A Disney Plus series with Keva. Would you remember Deborah Ann Rupp?
Yeah.
Oh, Deborah Jo Rupp.
Deborah Jo Rupp.
A Disney Plus series with Deborah Jo Rupp playing Aunt May would be.
Is she in the Coven of Chaos? Am I wrong about that?
Oh my God!
She is.
Yeah.
There's something about the fact that there are so many incredibly talented older women who, because they aged out of sexy before they reached that pinnacle, they just never got leading lady roles. And I just feel like Deborah Jo Rupp is somebody who could convince me that golden oldie could lead her own What If. So I just really think that there is something to be said for the fact that Topher Grace is on family money problems.
Not anymore.
Our
Home
favorite show
Economics.
ever, and it's canceled.
Home Economics, that he is so fucking flawless as a leading man, Dick Van Dyke levels of genuinely highest caliber leading man. And then they used him in this as Venom, a character he is nothing like. Eddie Brock, a character he is nothing like. Someone he has never manifested in any role.
Well, he was trying to stretch his abilities, but like Christopher, no one asked for that. Stick with
It's
what
also like you just can't think of anybody who comes off as less.
I'm never going to
bigger-
be 6'3". You can
Right,
only
I'm-
stretch so far.
And like,
I-
it just does not seem like somebody that Tobey Maguire would find threatening.
You know, I feel bad because if I want to draw a strong parallel between Topher Grace and Boimler, Jack Quaid.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Great parallel.
So it's not that, and I feel like their talent levels aren't even that disparate. So it's not that I don't feel like Topher Grace is completely incapable of any sort of level of malevolence, the way that we saw Jack Quaid perform in Five Cream.
Best part of Five Cream.
But so much about this, it didn't hit.
And also like that you're picking something that exactly explains why this doesn't work. Like the reveal is so good because Jack Quaid does not come off as physically threatening or he's just kind of the cute guy next door who's cracking jokes until they're in a position where they're fucked.
Do you know what Topher pulled it off in that we covered on HTML was, I think it was Predator was the one that had Adrian Brody where it took place on the alien planet. He played
Predator, yes. Excellent.
That level of character unbelievably well. So I don't know if it was that he needed time to develop those skills or again, maybe it's just the movie itself was a shit show.
And if I can, when I think about it's just such a shame that there aren't a wealth of openly queer directors who have helmed superhero movies that are referenceable.
Has anyone?
That are referenceable? X-Men. Because Sam Raimi, a queer Sam Raimi, because also Joel, I get the point I'm trying to make is Joel Schumacher.
Yeah.
I think Sam Raimi is sort of like a straight Joel Schumacher in a way that is unfortunate. It's unfortunate to talk about the fact that there's a generation of gay men who are, Lacage gays, and Spider-Man 3 is in so many ways kind of that product. It is a horror man getting to make a superhero film. I unfortunately had to give this a C. This is dreadful.
It's okay. I gave it a D.
I think it's just so bad. It is truly not worth the time it takes to watch.
Yeah, I'm also going to give it a D because I'm mad that I was supposed to give 2 a B and it didn't happen. So I'm pulling that average down. I know that's not how math works. I don't care.
This is an A. I will fight anybody. Andrew Garfield is my Spider-Man. That perfect cusp of, I don't like coming of age boy Spider-Man. There is nothing about an 18-year-old realizing the burgeoning future ahead of him that excites me. What excites me is a 30-year-old man recognizing the potency of his potential. And God, Andrew Garfield played this like it was the most important role of his life. He really played this with an intensity and intelligence, a kindness. He played this like certainly no boy would be expected to play it. And I know that oftentimes, when we're talking about significant characters in fiction, you know, when you talk about Marge Simpson, you're talking about like one of the greatest fictional mothers of all time. And you're talking about a character who has lasted 40 years or 30 years because she is beyond the scope of the expected mother. When we're talking about Spider-Man, we're talking about a character that existed in the teen psyche beyond 60 years because he represents the identity of the teenager. But as somebody who is, closer to 40 than he is to his teens, I definitely feel the idea of growth in every performance of Spider-Man is one of the hallmark defining things. Could you see Tom Holland as an adult man? Yes, then he's Spider-Man. Could you see Andrew Garfield as adult Spider-Man? I couldn't see him as kid Spider-Man. I think what maybe held back Tobey Maguire is I couldn't see him as adult Spider-Man either. Because he always has that wide-eyed kind of anime boy thing going for him.
I feel like he was always nebulously between boy and adult in that way that Matt Smith played an old man in a young man's body.
Yes. And for me, it was seeing Andrew Garfield that helped me see that, and seeing Tobey Maguire in No Way Home. I'm going to, please, that is why that movie is an A for me, Tobey Maguire's performance alone. But Andrew Garfield is my Spider-Man. I accept none other. This is only not an S because they did my Gwen so fucking dirty in this movie. She is barely an ancillary thought. Her dad is so much more important than her, which is so disrespectful of the incredible actress that Emma Stone is, the unbelievable character that Gwen Stacy has become as Ghost Spider and Spider Gwen and Ghost Gwen Spider Pepper. This is an A for me.
It's B for me.
Do you hear this guy?
I did.
It's a B.
He's not my Spider-Man. I don't believe in giving British people iconic American roles. I think it's really racist. I'm kidding. I mean, I don't like it. But
do you hear that, George Washington? You never should have been the first American president, and
truly,
we're coming for you.
That was an American role, and you just took it from hardworking Americans.
No, but really, truly, they're so rude about us taking roles of theirs, and they would never let an American play James Bond. J.K. Rowling, at the time when this was the biggest problem with her, was very no non-Brits or United Kingdom citizens.
There's
playing
a couple
any
of
these
Americans in Fantastic Beasts that are played by British people.
Like, can you people so precious about it? So the fact that we have so many American heroes played by this limited population from this tiny island, it just gets ridiculous.
And the thing is, it's always the same excuse that we can't do the British accents. They always know. I always know when it's a British person doing an American accent. There's this great clip of Tom Holland doing Spider-Man, and it's like he's just doing a line, and he says, I think the line is like a grandmother, but he can't say it right, and he keeps going like a grandmother. And he sounds like a drag queen saying mother.
It's
and
like
it's
a
just
Scottish person. What is it? A Scottish person saying purple burglar alarm.
Yeah, it's purple burglar alarm.
There are just certain phrases that because the phonetic doesn't ever exist in that dialect. It's just so hard to impersonate.
Right. So there, Spider-Man being iconically Queens, I don't think British people should get it. And my Spider-Man is since I have to pick, it's Tom Holland, so I can't grade too high for this one. I also think these films were just, they just sort of flatlined a little bit. Again, the B is given partially to production, and to execs, not to any of the actors or the writers.
Yeah, because if we were grading actors, this movie gets an S. Michael Keaton gives such a goddamn tour de force villain. I just don't even know what to say.
Michael Keaton's in this one?
No.
Oh no, that's God, no. Oh, this one is a horrible villain. Never
Yeah.
mind. D for this villain.
Yeah.
My
yeah,
bad.
This is
This
yeah,
one doesn't
Reese
have great
Ifans and Dennis
villains.
Leary.
I also
Ugh.
I don't love what's his name as Harry. I actually like Dane DeHaan. I am one of the few people in this world that likes Valerian in the City of a Thousand Planets.
I liked it.
I loved it. I think it's very
I
charming.
love the soundtrack.
I love the
Yeah.
French comic.
I also love the comic, but I really
We'll make him
like,
watch it.
what's his name?
Oh, and what's
Fifth
her
Element.
name is in it?
Yeah,
Cara
Cara
Delevingne.
Delevingne.
Yeah, and I love
Uh,
her. So
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll like her.
So, I like Dane DeHaan. I just think he was wrong for Harry. There's just a lot that I don't think is right about this movie. I do think Andrew Garfield is really good. I did love seeing him in No Way Home. I am kind of joking about the British actor thing. The real thing for me was him and Sally Field. They had such a loving chemistry. I just kind of wanted it to be about her being his biggest champion as Spider-Man. I just loved seeing them interact with each other. It was something that I thought was so special, even though I love Marissa Tomei and the banter between her and Tom Holland. Nothing gets it quite as right as the way Sally Field just looks at Andrew Garfield like, there goes my boy. Yeah.
And she also really played the Joyce Summers of it very well.
Yes.
There is something wrong here, and I am ignoring it because I don't want to know.
Yeah.
She always played that very well. She's had some unfortunately very disappointing comments about her involvement in the film since, which again always bums you out. And that's the same thing as Dakota Johnson. It bums you out, because it's hard for you to enjoy the movie if you hear the actor being like, it was a bag of shit. And I believe that's almost a direct quote from Sally Field. Because I loved her in it too. I thought she was a lot less soap opera-y than the Sam Raimi Aunt May, which, was entertaining, but was also annoying. And Sally Field was hilarious.
I mean, it's also funny that we get... Sorry, go ahead.
Good.
It's funny that we get these three distinct Mays. We get so geriatric. She is basically about to die. We get an older woman who might be your mom's older sister.
Right.
Golden Girls level, which when we were young felt older, but now we understand, is it as old as we thought it was?
Yeah, and she's able-bodied. The funniest thing was when
today it's hot in Cleveland, so yeah.
The meme of the original Aunt May praying before Norman Goblin bursts in, timing that out to 911, the intro to 911 on Chromatica, so that the bomb hits right as the song clicks over into 911. Really great meme, but she's just so old and infirm there.
I love that you guys are just doing anything to stop me from talking about Marissa Tomei, because you know that it will make this a deeply uncomfortable.
Yeah, so that all the way at the other end of the spectrum, we have horny
the most
Aunt
beautiful,
May.
Perfect woman on earth. Marissa
She actually
Tomei.
legitimately is.
I would leave every man I love for her. She is the most fucking beautiful woman on the planet.
I would send you off with flowers. I think that would be.
God.
She's amazing. I love her
again,
so much.
I know a human being that's friends with her, and she's so nice. Evidently,
We've loved. Our generation has loved her since My Cousin Vinny.
Wait, there's more.
She's just fantastic, but she is so young and hot. It's like almost a little bit silly. She is not to Tom Holland what Sally Field is to Andrew Garfield.
No, she's 15 years younger than Valerie Burton Ernie over on Hot in Cleveland, which just makes it hard to believe.
So it's fine. It's great. It does feel a little bit like I don't want to see an old on screen talking to some kid. If he's gonna have Aunt May, she better be hot.
Old head.
I want some cougar Aunt May. So anyway, it's just funny that we have these three. But of the three, I think it is dialed in correctly at Sally Field.
Agreed.
I only want to remind everyone, just per usual, 2016, she was 51 years old.
Oh God.
So I understand she's super fucking hot. But when she was in the first Spider-Man movie she was in, so Civil War, she was a Golden Girl age. I understand Marissa Tomei is super fucking hot, but she was never too young ever to play Aunt May, because if she was 51 and her nephew was 16, that meant she was 35 when he was born. That's not too young.
No.
Listen, as a proud bisexual man, I have been Dawson to Katie Couricking it to Marissa Tomei as long as I can remember. You are correct. As much as I think she is the perfect lady, she is definitely an older woman in terms of the grand scheme of the MCU, which does tend to cheat a little bit younger. And they've cruelly taken care of me ever worrying about that.
Sally Field was only about 12 years older than her.
Oh my God, that's 12 years. She wears like a shawl. Okay.
She was around 64 to Marissa Tomei's 51.
Woof. All right, guys, what's the score on this one? Because we basically talked about how much I love MILFs for the last 20 minutes.
Hey, whatever gets us those clicks.
I went B. You, I know, went A. Kevin went A.
I wish I could go S+.
We are now on to Spider-Man 2. I'm giving
C.
that one a C.
Look, the two things I love from Jamie Foxx are, number one, his performance of Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas from the season 2 In Living Color special. And also looking at him, because Jamie Foxx is like, oh my God, other men should just get... Jamie Foxx and Marissa Tomei would have an illogically beautiful baby. Their baby would be Miracle Man. Good God. This movie is unwatchably stupid, though. And I love that Andrew Garfield, the whole press tour, was like, it's kind of a bad movie. You should go see it, though. Yeah. Lots of bad movies get better over time. Yeah, no, go see this one. You'll have a good time. I promise. You'll enjoy this movie. Okay. We saw it. It was bad. It has not gotten better over time. But listen, Andrew, you have. So thank you. See.
So yeah, and the thing is, we didn't watch it at the time. Both of the Spider-Man film series that we knew that we wanted to watch before No Way Home came out, I had never seen the final installment until we binged all of those movies. So I hadn't seen... I liked huge parts of it. I probably liked it on at least the same level that I enjoy Madam Web. I'd give it, in comparison to the A that I gave the first one, I'd give it a B. Because, yeah, huge flaws. There were things that I liked about this interpretation of Harry, but even the things I liked sort of fell apart by the end. Yeah, it's a very strange... Everything about this is such a strange outing, and for it to just be 2 is so very strange. TK, what about you?
I gave it a C, mostly because I don't care at all about it or anything in it. It was boring. Paul Giamatti was weird.
Okay, for my 17th birthday, I brought my entire family to see Sideways. My sister, and because you're shaking your head at me, and I'm like, my brother clearly thought this was a bad. My father and sister walked out of it saying, "We wish you hadn't had a birthday this year."
Yeah,
and my mother
I'm
was
on
like,
team them.
My mother was like, "I'm really happy for you that you got to see Virginia Madsen in the theaters, I guess." Paul Giamatti, man, you did not deserve that Oscar. I'm so mad.
No, sir.
Virginia Madsen deserved the Oscar.
She deserved the Oscar for her speech at the beginning of Dune in 1984.
Okay, I'm going to say something insane.
I almost forgot.
I've never seen any Mad Max film. I am going to watch the entire universe because, what is it? Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yeah, Anya Taylor-Joy.
Joy in that trailer alone made me believe in the entire franchise. In that trailer, before this movie, I became a Mad Max fan in like an instant. I've seen all of the Tina Turner scenes, but like I fast forwarded. I rented it from Blockbuster and only watched the Tina Turner parts.
That is effort. That is effort, sir.
I'm gonna watch the whole movie though, because I definitely thought that was one of the most impressive trailers I've seen in a while. The stylization of those letters flying at you was
Wait,
one of the
where how did we come onto this subject from Virginia Madsen? Virginia Madsen Max?
Yeah, great.
Okay.
All right, take the microphone from me. It's great.
No, you just wanted to talk about Mad Max. Okay.
I really wanted to talk about how that was the coolest trailer I have ever seen in my life.
I wasn't sure if it was that Anya Taylor-Joy has a secret role in Dune. She's clearly playing Aaliyah. But
Because if at first you don't succeed.
Yeah, Aaliyah is in Dune.
show over.
Oh my
Dust
god.
it off and try again. Dust.
Dust.
Sand. Dune.
Get up on that
Spice.
worm. Okay,
Oh.
this is a C. What's your grade, Kevo?
I'm going with B because I really liked the characters, even for when the film fell apart. Civil
Man.
War. Are we grading this by Spidey involvement?
Well, okay, I just want to say that there was a period in this episode where I was like, our team is in trouble. We had some tough arguments. And now we're all laughing like idiots, so I'm having a great time. I'm going to grade this on a dual front. I'm going to grade this sort of like as a film and what was Spider-Man's portion of this film. If this film was an S film, was Spider-Man A worthy in this film, or was he nothing? Honestly, this movie's an A. I am a Captain America guy. You guys might notice I was so excited about the opportunity to talk about this movie. I wore a Captain America shirt. Whole reason I wanted to wear this shirt. This is my least favorite Captain America story arc from the comics, like ever. But it is up there with one of the best MCU films. One of the things that makes this movie so spectacular is the contrast of Captain America and Spider-Man. I think even when Spider-Man isn't a hero in this film, even when he isn't the main star, the contrast he provides to a young man who just wanted to save his town, it's beautiful. And so while Amazing Spider-Man 2 gets a really low grade from me, Civil War is a beautiful moment for Spider-Man that I think gets an A.
I also gave it an A. I think it's wild what a great introduction to Spider-Man it is. It is wild the way that Tony Stark having irons in the fire at this point in the MCU is so believable that in and of itself is enough of an origin story, and that Marvel really said, we will let you write your own ideas about how we got from point A to point B with a lot of this stuff, and we'll just give you this initial meeting saying, like, making the introduction, but we won't do an entire intro film. And then Peter just shows up in a situation that he really shouldn't be in. This is a fight between friends. He's not supposed to be there at all. And Tony was wrong to put this kid in danger.
Truly.
But it starts such an important series of events. So yeah, it's an A for me.
Yeah. Kevo, I remember seeing this with you, and the first time you were just so taken by it and the sort of like magical energy it provided. How do you feel in retrospect on Captain America Civil War?
I really like a lot of it, and I really like a lot of it as a film, but I think in terms of for ranking it as a Spider-Man film, I'm still yet going to ding it down a few points. For the Spider-Man bang for your buck, it's really more of like a B. Because because I even love the story that it gives us, but he's not quite enough of the focus of the story for me to rank it much higher.
Oh, I totally get that. I think one of the things about Civil War is like the role is literally meant for, at one point, an earlier draft had Black Panther getting almost demoted to the Spider-Man role. At one point, a draft had Daredevil getting added to the cast, and it was Charlie Cox getting ready to suit up and be in Civil War. So it's very likely that it's very difficult for Spider-Man to have an overwhelming impact on the film when at any point he could have been one of multiple heroes. All right, so we averaging like a B on this guy. Oh, try that again, Teak.
We're all voting individually, so we don't know the average.
Oh, you're totally right, Kevin. What you putting?
B.
Perfect. I think Spider-Man Homecoming is an A. This is a strong film from a strong creative team. It was a lot of fun. It had the aforementioned Adrian Toomes. He gave such an incredible performance as the villain that it even rivaled Tony Stark being in the film. When you think about movies that Robert Downey Jr. is in, it's definitely not this one because he's in about 3 minutes of this, and Iron Man is in the other 18. But, all said and done, I think Homecoming is a great film, and I give it an A. How about you guys?
It's a B for me. Of all the Tom Holland Spider-Man films, this one actually is kind of a little bit underwhelming to me. It was weird what they were doing with MJ. It's weird. I like Michael Keaton, and they've picked the perfect person who looks the approximate age that I really do think Adrian Toomes should be. I mean, like, there are times in the comics where I'm like, that is a 90-year-old man.
92, bare minimum.
And that poor geriatric really ought not to be in flight at this moment. I think that is a mistake.
Mr. Burns.
Michael Keaton is, really Mr. Burns, Kevo, 100%. Michael Keaton is older now. He is definitely a very clearly aged man, but looks about healthy enough to hold his own with machinery against a healthy, stupid kid.
72, so here 65.
Yeah, sure.
So here he was the age Sally Field was in Amazing Spider-Man 1.
It's geriatric math. And yet I find myself sort of uncompelled by him as a villain, by the use of him in this movie. Way too many daddy issues with Tony. And yeah, I mean, like, it's a good B, but it is still a B.
So, Kevo, as you are the casting vote, what are you giving it?
I want to say I'm gonna give this an A. I'm really surprised that I'm wondering if I'm going to end up giving anything an S, but I don't want to just give it an S for that reason because there definitely are drawbacks. I liked a lot of it, but it very clearly needs the foundation of the MCU to function, and right out the gate. And that's a lot for a film franchise to have to rely on.
All right. I'm going to move us a little bit faster through a couple of these because I think in a lot of ways, Infinity War and Endgame should be discussed sort of like at once.
Yeah.
I think Infinity War and Endgame, you could give either one of them an A and either one of them an S. I'm going to give them both A's here just to be safe. I think on the day I'd give one of them an S. I'd give one of them a B. There's probably days where 3 hours feels interminable and days where 3 hours feels like, man, I'm high as shit. I got to do something instead of jerk off. So let's watch Endgame. That's the plan. Right. And so I think there's a lot of times where I'd give one of them an S. I'd give one of them an A, one of them a B. I think they're going to both average A's for me. How about you guys?
Infinity War's getting the A for me. Endgame's getting the B. I'm thinking about this both in terms of Spider-Man and the films as a whole. Infinity War is a really great Spider-Man movie. Is a really great Spider-Man feature. There is some
crawling up that rocket.
Truly. And you just a lot of that, banter with Strange and Iron Man, him fighting Thanos. There's a lot of cool stuff. Endgame, for me, Endgame, I haven't watched in a really long time where I don't just fast forward to the portals opening up. And that's also happens to be where Spider-Man shows up. And he's got some great moments, but nothing has ever stood out. People talk about how they think the girls helping each other is cheesy. I think Spider-Man having to be told to get the fuck out of the way so that Pepper can have Tony's final minutes is actually the cheesiest thing in the world, and I cannot believe it didn't somehow get changed in script rewrites, because to me it is just the cringiest thing that I even get the idea that a kid would be grieving so much for this father figure, but it just you can't convince me that was something about it sits so wrong with me. So anyway, A and B, A for Infinity War, B for Endgame.
I am probably going to end up harmonizing with a lot of you guys' sentiments when it comes to these films. I'm going to say definitively, my ranking for Infinity War is A here right now. But then I'm going to save my definitive ranking for Endgame until we get to it, to underline the fact that we have 2 Spider-Verse movies between Avengers movies, because we are doing this in release order. So while we talked about Infinity War and Endgame back to back, there are 2 Spider-Man movies that released in between those movies. The first being Venom. Venom.
I can't give this an S. I can give it an A. I think if you look in Tom Hardy's eyes and you look deep and you look hard, you can see a man who says, yeah, I know what pegging is. So I'm going to give this an A because I think he is so beautiful. If I gave it less than an A, I'd feel really bad, but I'm tempted to give Venom 2 a D. So this gets an A. How about you guys?
It's a B for me. It's a really solid B. I think he's great. Like I said, I think Eve Marie Abraham would have made a really funny Venom voice. I was actually surprised to learn that it is Tom Holland doing Venom, and I keep forgetting that Tom Holland is British. And I don't know. Tom Holland is one of those guys that Hardy, thank you. Sorry, I keep saying Holland. Hardy.
It's annoying though.
Yes.
It's not your fault.
Tom Hardy is one of those guys that I can always tell he's British because he never does a standard mid-Atlantic accent. He can do very thick, heavy, goofy accents.
Yes.
But I think I'm sure to local aficionados of those accents and dialogues, he doesn't sound right. This is a silly movie, but it's not silly enough. It has a ton of great ideas, not always perfect execution. Why is Michelle Williams in this movie? She's great. She's really down to play, and I love that about her.
Okay, well, Can I be honest with you? You talk to me about what Brokeback residuals are for the 2 women who didn't win the Oscars.
It's true. And Anne Hathaway had to pull her boobies out for that one. Both.
I put a note in your tackle box every year, and you never bring me home trout.
So you must be gay. That's how every wife finds out. So yeah, this is a B for me. It's a really solid B.
That's how Marissa Tomei found out with me. She was like, "No, you never bring me fish," and so we at Christmas had to break up.
My B is less solid, but it is elevated by the things that were developed from this film into the sequel, which is what also elevates the sequel from the D that I would want to give it otherwise. But so I'm going to go with B on this one. And now we are into the Spider-Verse, which I guess maybe will be an S.
This is my first S.
Yeah, I gave this an S. No, I gave this an A, and I gave the sequel an S. So I give this an A, and I'm going to give the sequel an S.
Yeah, this is my first S. I love this film. I think that this really fills in so many of the cracks in the Sony Spider-Verse. This is the kintsugi, the Japanese repairing of broken pottery with gold. This is the gold that this is so much of what makes the Spider-Verse beautiful and what could make the rest of it beautiful. This could somehow connect to Madam Web if they wanted it to.
Dakota Johnson as Madam Web could show up in the third Into the Spider-Verse film, and I wouldn't even think twice about it.
Yeah. So, it's beautiful for that for me.
I think my grading curve for this and its sequel are very similar to the way I described Venom, except for here it's an S and an A. Because I'm just not as hype on the sequel for this until we know what's going to be coming after it for its continuation. Because this was such a great, if there hadn't been more, if this had been it would have been great. And the next one, if that's the end, that sucks. But we'll get to that more later. Now we actually did get Endgame, which I believe we had all said is graded lower than Infinity War. Just by nature of he's only in 15 minutes, even,
Well, I gave it an A, so your call.
It's a B for me. This is a B.
And then what I also love here is that this really draws my attention to how many Spider-Man involved films there were within the course of 16 months between Infinity War, Venom, Into the Spider-Verse, Endgame, and Far From Home.
Spider-Man is dead. Make 35 films. Go!
I give Far From Home an A. I just thought it was really fun all around. I just had a lot of fun with it.
I think part of why I have to give this movie a B is the same reason I have to give Madam Web a C+. Deeply manipulative media production, deeply manipulative advertising. I felt like they wanted me to believe that Far From Home was going to be the beginning of the multiverse, and it wasn't. It was certainly not the beginning of the multiverse in any countable way.
And when you were planning on doing it, why are you psyching me out? Why are you manipulating me? Why are you doing this fake out? Why aren't you just committing to the story and giving me the story? It's not necessary.
It's why nobody trusts the photon reveal at the end of the Marvels. It's because everybody feels sincerely like it's going to be another Mysterio reveal. So, I think I got to give this a B. As much as I liked this movie, as much as I like anything involving Jake Gyllenhaal, including the AU, where he has a beautiful OnlyFans, where he shows, hold on, man. I would personally think that, this movie would be an S+ in that universe. But in the world where he is not Johnny Rapid, I'm going to have to give him a B.
Yeah, same B. It's still really great, but unfortunately for me, the things that draw it back really do draw it back. And it can't help the fact that it came at such a chaotic time that we then would not be getting another Spider-Man film for a full 2 years after getting 5 in 16 months. But it was just, it felt a little sloppy coming at the end of the Infinity Saga. And so I would have liked more.
Kev, I want to ask you a question about that in particular. We're talking about the fact that No Way Home sort of skipped the multiverse, but then, Far From Home skipped the multiverse, but then No Way Home is the multiverse.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the fact that the multiverse was saved for the next Spider-Man movie?
That is an interesting point. I feel like that even is more of a hindrance in some ways, though, to immediately give us the reality right after that fake out.
Speaking of tough realities right after a fake out, I thought that Venom was going to be a turning point for the Venom franchise. And then I don't know, maybe it was pandemic blues, maybe it was the fact that he didn't marry Grace, but in so many ways, Woody Harrelson's performance as Carnage is awful. This is Rachel Lee Cook playing Wheezy Jefferson in a remake. It is so many kinds of what were you thinking that I can't even begin to imagine what went into casting this man as Carnage. There are people who play comfortably deranged well, and there are people who automatically give it a humanity. Woody Harrelson automatically gives it a humanity, and I don't know if that's his drawl, the way he delivers his lines, but this movie is a solid C for me. The only thing saving it from a D is that the ending involves elevating Dan to a romantic place in Venom's eyes. But otherwise, this is a dreadful movie that I kind of regret the 2 hours it took me.
Go, Kevo.
I feel like, there is this perception of Woody Harrelson of, you're still the guy from Natural Born Killers, right? And to a degree, he is, but to a degree, he's not. And maybe that's part of what they were going for in this, but it doesn't come across.
There is nothing crazier than the end credit sequence for the first Venom, where Woody Harrelson shows up with a full head of insanely curly hair. In the post-apocalyptic dystopia of the Hunger Games, Woody Harrelson having a full head of hair was like, sure, the entire world has been lost to nuclear fallout. I guess Woody Harrelson believably has hair. But I'm sorry, I simply cannot accept in a world with symbiotic life forms from another world that Woody Harrelson has that full head of hair. That's where the problems start. We then get into Venom 2, where he now has an entirely different texture of a full head of hair. We also established that he is about our age, maybe just a little bit older. In 1996, he's high school aged.
No.
Yeah, he's in that asylum, and it's like a kid's asylum.
I believe what you're saying is their intention. I'm saying I'm not saying it. Yeah, I believe you.
And Woody Harrelson is like 30 years older than us. So that doesn't work. Woody Harrelson's 62. So
yeah,
that math ain't mathin'. Again,
Jeez, why wasn't he Uncle Ben?
A very fair question. I am shocked that they didn't cast Cameron Monaghan in this role. I guess he would have been a little young when Venom came out, but I would have just I would have just recast. He was great as the pseudo Joker in Gotham. He looks a lot more like Cletus Cassidy.
What's Saltburn's name?
Barry Keoghan.
Oh yeah,
he would have been a great Carnage. I mean, admittedly, far too young at the time, but now he would just be barely too young and would give such a stellar performance because he was what's his name in the Eternals.
Yeah, he was Druig.
And
he's actually Barry Keoghan's actually a year older than Cameron Monaghan. So like I do think this is about the right age. I don't think it like anyway. It was weird that Shriek was in it because Shriek is a mutant and they talk about her powers, but then she obviously can't be a mutant because Sony doesn't have a right to the mutants. Like I said, this is directed by Andy Serkis, who doesn't have a ton of directing credits, but is an incredible name in filmmaking of all sorts, whether you know him as Gollum, Ulysses Claw.
Jennifer Garner's boss in 13 Going on 30.
Thank you. Good one.
I will lose my job, sir. If you tell anyone that I was going down here, please, I will lose my job.
He's also Caesar the monkey from Planet of the Apes. So, just a great guy. And you could see that he was trying to bring fun to this movie. The scene where Venom is trying to make Eddie Brock breakfast and singing Potato Potato is just really funny and fun, and like it's absurd in a way that superhero movies should be, and they never are. And that stuff like that is why this is getting a C and not a D, because in a lot of ways this really unfortunately fails. I wish it didn't, but you know, here we are.
You know, I think No Way Home is a stellar knockout for the Marvel company as an idea. It represents the first foray into multiversity, but when you consider the bigness of multiversity for the Marvel company, it sort of feels like barely even a footnote into that foray. I think so many people consider the first film that really embraces the idea of multiversity, to be Doctor Strange 2. It makes me wonder if perhaps the limited way that No Way Home interacted with the concept of multiversity almost endangered the validity of the idea here. So I personally would have liked to have seen this go a little bit further, or perhaps I would have loved to have seen the original version where America Chavez is the one who punches them into reality. It would have given it a more connected, cohesive feel. But at the end of the day, I do think this was a strong film, perhaps more a B than an A, but certainly not a C or a D. We have so few films in those categories. TK, how do you feel about No Way Home, or the NWH, as the people in the know call it?
This is an S for me. I loved this movie all around. It was so great to see the three Spider-Men together. It was great to get these villains back. Kind of proof that... as a great example, Jamie Foxx was not miscast and was not bad, and the character isn't even bad. Spider-Man 2 wasn't well done. Spider-Man 2 didn't have a good script, didn't make good use of Jamie Foxx. But Jamie Foxx's Electro doesn't actually have to be a bad choice. And a movie...
Jamie Foxx.
A movie that can reckon with the mistakes of its past and like past versions of the property is actually very impressive to me. I do think in a world where the release schedule hadn't gotten fucked up by COVID and just life, and Doctor Strange had come out first, and we had gotten maybe a more measured on-ramp to multiversity, might have made this an S+ movie. But for my money, for the concepts involved, for what needed to happen for me to not just be getting a little bit tired of Spider-Man, this really did everything I needed it to do. And so for me, that's why it's an S.
And I feel like, ironically for me, I'm giving this an S for the same reason that I didn't give Homecoming an S, where I felt like the things that make No Way Home an S, it cannot possibly have been an S without the foundational structure of the MCU, the Spider-Man films that come before it, the fact that he's a comic book character in the first place. So, this is all in the first place sourcing back to a variety of material. But in that regard, it does make it such this fascinating triumph of all of those things. And Peak Jonas says No Way Home was fun, if a bit cluttered with a ton of stuff. Solid A-/B+ for me. And yeah, I even know that part of my ranking is super personalizing, and I'm allowing myself the little treat for this one because this one also came at such a hard time for the world. Still, there's that 2-year gap in Spider-Man movies because there was just a 2-year gap in movies, and it was tough. And the fact that they were able to make this, they were able to keep so many surprises, they were able to pull in Daredevil, this is his first MCU appearance, is amazing. And that it has now avalanched into the fact that Stop giving me Daredevil. I see it on my feed every day. That red suit is gorgeous and his ass looks great. But I want to save some for when the show drops. Finally.
Never!
I want to save some of this Daredevil goodness for when the 2 seasons of the TV show drop.
Wait.
Like, and it all started with this, which is just so cool.
Kevo, what's the name of the woman who foolishly marries Kirk on Gilmore Girls? There's that moment where she screams, where Kirk is like, "No, give me that back," and she's like, "No, never!" It's that level of scream for I would not give back this Daredevil appearance for anything. I feel like there was a period of time where people were going to get their Disney executives and round them up into a room and go, "Bob Iger, come here, Bob Iger. We have a ruler and we're going to hit you on the hands." And then instead, No Way Home gives us Daredevil. And I feel like in so many ways that legitimized the possibility of She-Hulk Attorney at Law having Daredevil in it and that giving birth to Born Again. It's just a really beautiful moment for the synergy of the Marvel Universe. It's unfortunate that it sort of feels like it took a movie about multiversity to bring Daredevil in, and that almost invalidated the Marvel Netflix universe, but I feel like in so many ways they've spent the last 6 months kind of trying to buy that back.
And then do we jump from an S to speaking of things they need to buy back?
D.
Oh, I watched this for the first time today. This is a C-. I only can't give this a D
Not a D?
because I predicted everything that happened in it, which at least made it feel like a predictable modulation. This was bad, but not so much worse than Madam Web. I don't know. I sat through Aladdin, Return of Jafar, and Prince of Thieves. And if you're asking
Watch
me
yourself.
which is the worst, it's kind of Prince of Thieves. They're all like they're S, A+, and B+. But it's sort of like all of the songs in Return of Jafar are so fucking cool. And they're so weird and they're kind of out there and they're sort of the way that like I like to do drag and like they're my weird take on the universe. And so no, listen, you are the handsomest man on
Listen,
the
I'm
planet,
not
but
saying your only second rate is bad, and I'm not saying that
I have
Forget
written
About
18
Love
versions of
is
your
not
only
one of my
second rate
favorite
and Forget About
songs.
no.
But there's a
Nothing in the
party
whole
here
wide
in
world.
Agrabah, Out of Thin Air.
Okay, party here in
Welcome to the
Agrabah.
40 Thieves.
Maybe.
Listen,
Welcome to the 40 Thieves. Are you kidding?
Are you kidding?
Listen,
Two of you
Ooh.
are having a moment.
I'm going to make out with you so hard in a minute. Continue to argue with me. Nothing turns me on more. I love being argued with. But what I want... Fuck, you're so handsome. What I want
Out
to
of Thin
say
Air is the
is that...
best song in the Aladdin franchise. Go ahead.
No, it is specifically
It is.
Nothing in the Whole Wide World
It
Like a
is.
Friend. But regardless...
It's a Fraggle Rock song.
You're a fucking Fraggle Rock song, you little bitch. Go get your puppet arms up. So... Morbius.
What does any of this have to do with Morbius?
Morbius is basically the Aladdin Prince of Thieves of the sort of like side canon Spider-Man movies. I genuinely give Madam Web, in terms of these side canon stupid movies, an A to start. I'm giving Morbius a C to start. And there is literally nothing that Craven can do to not get an E. That is not a D. That is a score that is so far off the ratings that I cannot say it in a normal human voice. It's not an E. It's an E.
I got several E's in high school.
So I have to give Morbius a C because I need something to give it a space between this and Craven hasn't even come out yet.
It's a D for me. It's just bad. It's just not a good movie.
But he does origami and he loves sick orphans.
And also has the power to control bats like nanites.
He flies.
He flies ish.
He flies in front of trains.
He seems to be able to harness the wind speed of a train. It's a bad movie. The makeup is embarrassing.
He has a lot of the same delusions that a lot of my friends who were into Quaaludes had.
Matt Smith is killing it from up here all the way down to a pair of New Balances that nobody told him to take off and put on sexy dude shoes when he suddenly comes into his own. Why is he in New Balances?
Is he British poor? Is it British actors make less money than American actors? So they wear New Balance to the set? Is that what it is?
He's so rich he has bankrolled his friend to create artificial blood, but can't afford a pair of nice shoes.
He just likes them.
It's
a character
choice.
He's
half naked,
he would do that,
touching his ripped body because he's got the blood of the vampire in him now, and he's healthy.
Okay,
and then he's just
unbelievably healthy, natural-looking bodies.
Oh, fuck off, Jared Leto. And then he's just in a pair of New Balances. Meanwhile,
both of them. Why are you not giving Matt Smith the credit he deserves?
I did. He was the first one I gave credit to.
Those are some good cum gutters.
Yeah, he's looking great.
Ain't need no doctor.
But it's not good, and I give it a D.
Kevo, stop us from turning this into a Morbius episode. What do you think?
Also D. I just can't. I really can't. There were things.
Origami.
There were things that made this film watchable, but they had nothing to do with the script or performances. And so I really cannot give. So, if this movie had been made 20 years ago, it would have been genuinely unwatchable.
No,
because it would not have had the film standards of today.
Beg to differ. If this movie had been a Showtime TV movie in 1997,
that's what it is.
Breathtaking.
If it had been a major motion picture 20 years ago, though, it would have looked terrible.
If this had been a major motion picture 20 years ago, everybody involved would have been fired. This was
exactly.
Born a little bit of the green screen generation. Some of those bridge shots were just absolutely just putting some actors in front of Starry Night and saying, "It's nighttime." It was really some of the worst CGI I've ever seen. Also, Kevo, you made an incredible point. Does the man turn to dust of himself? Is it literally just so?
What are the particles he turns into when he's jumping around? I don't follow exactly what power there is.
They're based on his clothes, so that when he fights Matt Smith, they're not the same pasty person. But also, what I do want to add is there's 32 years between Jared Leto and Matt Smith. And that we're they're the same age man is a little bit unusual. It is sort of like saying Secret Diary of a Call Girl and American Gigolo exist in the same time period. It's a little off.
It's 11 years, and that's still too much.
Yeah. Okay. I think Kevo's giving it a D, so
yes,
D it up.
And I love that I included all of the dates in here because this again draws my attention to. So Morbius came out April 2022, and then again, no Spider-Man movie for 14 months. So the release pattern on these films to where sometimes it's unbelievably saturated in a short period of time, and sometimes there's we're waiting forever. It's truly bizarre.
I agree. TK, how did you feel about, Across the Spider-Verse and maybe even the marketing of Across the Spider-Verse, which was slightly deceptive in that I don't think that Miguel came off as the villain of all of the marketing, the way that perhaps the girls seemed like they would be in their costumes at any point in Madam Web?
This is an S for me. This was one where I don't. I knew I was so in that I refused to pay attention to the marketing because I didn't want to be spoiled on anything. I haven't seen a single frame of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth because I just know I'm going to play it. I don't.
I've
want
seen
to.
so many frames, and I'm not the same man I was in 2023.
Yeah, I don't want. I know I'm gonna play it, so I just want to experience it all there. I really love that I'm just lucky enough to be getting these horrible idiot with their flash on images of the Daredevil behind the scenes shots, because it doesn't look like it's going to look on screen when somebody just like shoves their camera phone at the red suit. It's just not how it's going to play on screen. So I don't feel like I'm getting quite as caught up, but I know I'm going to watch that. So I'm really not looking at trailers. There's another big film that I'm not watching the trailer for. I'm not thinking of it, but if I know I'm going to see it, I try and stay away from the marketing, because marketing is so terrible right now. It is people who are bad at their jobs who are kept around to be bad at their jobs, because you can shunt a lot of the budget for production into marketing and write it off from a tax perspective. And it means that if you're technically spending $200 million. And so when the movie makes less than projected, you can write it off as a loss, basically. And a lot of that money goes into marketing, and the people who do the marketing do a bad job at making the films look good, because that's not the goal.
Well, and that's even kind of what we were talking about earlier in this episode, about how some films are destined to fail before they even come out.
Yes. And I really do. The fact that he was in the Amazon with my mom while she was studying spiders right before she died, turned into a meme, is not because some marketing genius was like, I got this.
No, it's because some Reddit queen said, nah, I want to do this. It's 2:03 in the morning.
Exactly. It was that we all woke up and were like, that is so stupid. Let's all laugh about it together. And I try and stay away from a lot of that stuff. I stayed away from it with Spider-Verse. I was just so happy with everything about it. With the exception of the fact I did love it very much, but I might have preferred to see the daughter of my heart, Mayday, as a fully realized adult and not as a very adorable baby. I might have liked to have seen Benji be the baby and Mayday be a fully realized spider person.
Kevo, this is one that I really remembered you having a positive reaction to at the time. How do you feel about Across the Spider-Verse all this time later? I had to check that it wasn't like Into Across Beyond the Spider-Verse.
Like I said earlier, I feel like I am ranking this in a similar way to the two Venoms, where this one for me is a little bit lower than the first one. It's elevated by the strength of getting to see more of characters that I'd gotten to know and love. But with the way that this ends on the cliffhanger, not really being sure how it develops, because like one of the things you said at the start of talking about this is Miguel's the villain. Well, no, he's not really the villain. There's actually really no villain of this other than fate and time and death. It's kind of going to be Spot, and they made that clear, but he wasn't really given a lot of room or growth in the first one. He's clearly going to be the major physical antagonist of the third one, because we need that. But Miguel isn't really as much the villain as his ideology is a villain, and he's probably going to need to learn a lesson himself. And so it doesn't really feel like a complete film, because these are all conclusions that I'm drawing as someone who's been studying film for pretty much all my life. But it's not something we have any confirmation of until we get the actual finished film. Because as we've seen in a lot of these movies on this docket in particular, and Madam Web today in particular, you can't really say for certain what a film is going to be until it is finished, published, printed, and out there for the masses to see. Except for this movie, which had different scenes at different theaters. Oh, right. So even then, everything is chaos.
I completely forgot that weird thing where they began, I don't know, updating the film for DVD in the process of releasing it to theaters. This would have never worked in a pre-Top Gun second run theater universe. Jesus. TK, as a guy who literally went to school for film, how do you feel about Across the Universe updating the film while in theaters?
I don't love it, but I sort of also don't really know where we're going with that as a trend. I feel like right now I don't really actually think we are going anywhere with that. If it starts to be the type of thing where I'm just seeing it happen all the time. I'll probably be pretty grossed out. But I think the novelty of the fact I miss film. I really do. I miss film canisters. I miss shooting on film. I miss projecting on film.
The first film I ever made, a superhero parody of Glenn or Glenda called Juan or Wanda, was shot on 16 millimeter. I wrote it. It's terrible. Don't watch it.
Yeah. I have one also shot in 16 millimeter that actually caused a marriage and 2 divorces. And I miss film, but I get the novelty of being like, oh shoot, we screwed up, but all we have to do is literally edit this file and then we'll send it out and things will be good. I'm hoping that does not lead to a rush of just like, let's make a bad movie and then we can fix it
later. Yeah.
We can fix it in the second week after we see what the numbers are like. So we'll see. But for now, I loved this one. I'm bummed because I don't remember which thing I got. I don't remember if I got her taking the selfie or the other one.
I got the first. We saw it like Saturday. It came out Friday. Like there was no time.
But it wasn't just that they updated it. Different theaters just got different ones.
Oh, I didn't realize that. That's really fascinating.
At the same time.
Yeah. That's amazing. Kevo, so I think you ultimately gave that one an S?
I gave it an A.
Oh, an A. Terrific. Kevo, how do you feel about Madam Web all said and done? You know, that's been the whole point of this episode that I had sort of planned out an hour 50, but here we are at 2:30. Yoicks. So I guess we had a lot to say about Spider-Man. That's so exciting. And I'm really excited to be part of talking about Spider-Man with you on this channel for like 200 hours. All said and done. Where do you Madam Web this episode?
I am debating between B and C currently. Teak, do you have your vote yet?
So my B's right now are Spider-Man 2, Amazing Spider-Man, Spider-Man, the original Home,
Homecoming,
Always at Home, Venom, and Infinity War.
Spider-Man Work from Home.
Or sorry, an Endgame. Spider-Man Work from Home. That would be so good.
That would be great.
Hello, I'm Tim Holland, and I'm working from home. I'm going to do some dancing.
I feel like I cannot give Madam Web a B the same way that Endgame.
TK, I do not know what happened, but your audio cut out. And
I thought it was just me. Thank God.
It was magical because you go, I cannot give Madam Web a B the same way I can give Endgame a B because. And I was like, yeah, that is one of those things where the internet shorted out because of the sentence.
Yeah.
I thought it was my headphones when I realized the music was still going.
That really does say it all. I can't. Madam Web was not as good a movie as Endgame. It wasn't as good a movie.
Yeah.
It wasn't as good as Homecoming. It wasn't as good as Amazing Spider-Man. I love it. I think there's so much that I love about it. And, tearing is about kind of figuring this stuff out. There are certain ways in which I would give Madam Web a higher grade than some of those movies because I thought it did cool stuff that they didn't do. None of these movies passed the Bechdel test. I shouldn't say none of them, but very few of them do. And if they do, it's by this.
Madam Web, they never talked about a guy other than him trying to murder them.
And I just want to point out that Morbius technically passed the Bechdel test.
Get out!
I hate you. You're done.
I'm kicking you out next time.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that Madam Web doesn't just pass the Bechdel test. They never talk about a man. It's never about there, and she has no. And
she's cute.
Yeah, she never. Dakota Johnson doesn't have a romantic male lead that
But the young ladies dance for the boys of Midtown High, the very school
I know
that Peter and Mayday go to.
You're right.
Are they wearing Midtown High shirts?
They are wearing literally the jersey that Mayday wears.
Yeah. So like there's ways in which this is a really great film, but when we're pulling it all together, when we're talking about this tier, unfortunately, I'm gonna give this one a C, but it's a C plus 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 plus. Write a whole program out of it.
It's like by the sea, Mr. Todd. It's like it's
there
a
you
good
go.
C.
It is a really good C. And there are like if you were talking about films in which women love and support each other, this is the only S like in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So
it's the S of the C and D's is kind of what I think. Like, because, you know, Venom, Spider-Man 3, what's that other nightmare way down there? Morbius? Yikes. So I think in a lot of ways, Madam Web is kind of like the queen of the bad stuff, which to throw it back to an hour and a half ago, it's Aaliyah. It's the queen of the damned. So it's kind of magical. The problem is, I think that in so many ways, Madam Web is coming on the very end of a humongous identity problem. Spider-Man has been trying to exist in two universes for a long time. And, you know, when you think about like comic universes, there's Marvel and DC. But when you think about film franchises, it's Marvel, Sony, Fox, DC. And then there's so many more beyond that. It feels in a lot of ways like Madam Web is trying to exist in the Sony universe and the Marvel universe at the same time. And that's really difficult for it because it's really struggling to establish an identity among so many titles. I really hope that Madam Web ultimately over time continues to gain ground the way that, you know, some of these movies have. I don't think that over time Morbius or Spider-Man 3 have necessarily gained love. But I do think that Amazing Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man 2 have both seen a greater result as a result of time than they did as a result of release and upfront reaction. So, Kevin,
it really could be.
Oh, sorry, by all means,
it really could be one of their first cult classics.
Yeah, yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to find a way to say. Thank you, Kevin. Where are you altogether putting Madam Web?
I think I'm gonna say C. I liked your praise, Queen of the Bad Ones. I liked what TK said about it doesn't go on the same level as any of those other Bs. It's almost as good as Venom, because the parts of it that are good are as good as the parts of Venom that are good, but the parts of it that are bad are worse than the parts of Venom that are bad, and in fact are almost as bad as the parts of Venom 2 that are bad.
They're like celebrity fucking up match game bad. They are painful.
You know, Woody Harrelson's bad in Venom 2 is worse because I expect more from Woody Harrelson. It's only not worse in Madam Web because I don't know who this guy is. He's just some hot guy and he's walking around barefoot and it's weird and he did not give good performance, but I at least didn't have high expectations of him. It's bad. It's really bad and it's worse than the bad in Venom. So kind of has to go with C.
It's just kind of show feet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Show spider feet.
You know, and I feel really bad because I made a joke to TK in the green room that was, I only wish that we could give Craven a preventative E below the chart.
No, the joke that you made was that we should replace D with Craven, and you said if only we could replace D with Craven, and I thinking that you were not like being a professional, that you were just like making a suggestion, was like, I have the technical capability to do that, and you were like, no, dummy, that's just unprofessional.
I have no faith in James Fry's upcoming Craven film. You know, it is just a million little pieces of bad decisions involved here. I really hope that this movie kicks ass, but if it doesn't, I am altogether fine with this sort of weird trilogy of sub-Spider films. There's an identity to these two films so far that if Craven can just continue this sort of positive but very, very dumb, very mindless energy, I would be really thrilled to see these films go on, but fuck DK. But if these films do in fact find themselves a trilogy unto time, you know, at least there's a trilogy. There's only 2 Boondock Saints movies. So I will take this. And I'm pretty excited to walk away from the Spider movies feeling like no matter what, we did 17 movies worth of work. And I can't say that about too many other things in my life. How about you guys?
I don't care about Craven. I'm getting galaxy brained and really big pictured here. I want the sequel to Madam Web. I want a Slingers show. I want a 4th Peter Parker. Now I'm thinking that Mayday feels more possible than ever. What's his name? What's his name is starting to look like new girl Peter Parker from Across the Spider-Verse.
Oh, yeah.
Jake
Director
Johnson.
Boy. Yes, thank you, Jake Johnson.
Jake Johnson is starting to look like what I think Peter Parker as an adult father of a teenage child should look like. Like he looked ridiculous in MC2. Love the guy so much, but it was just such a silly look. And now we're meeting Dad Peter in the new Ultimate Universe, and like the whole idea is he's significantly older than the Peter that we see in the 616 comics. But what's actually happening is Martin Coccolo is just drawing really hot Peter Parker with a beard who keeps looking in the mirror being really hot and going, "You're not getting any younger, Peter." That's all nonsense.
Did you read the thing where Chip Zdarsky was offered the book that that was like literally they were like, Chip Zdarsky, you should draw the book, and he was like, no, if anybody, I'm sorry, write the book, and if anybody but fucking Hickman writes the book, it's going to be terrible. And Hickman was like, I don't think that's true, you should write it. And then like 2 months later was like, no, you're right, I should write it, I'm gonna write it, thanks.
Okay. Well, that's, we'll see how that turns out. We'll reflect on that when we get to about issue 4, I think. Pin that one up on the board. We'll need to discuss later. But anyway, that guy, new girl Peter Parker from Across the Spider-Verse, looks about how I would think that the Peter Parker that is the father of Mayday in a Marvel adapted MC2 Spider-Girl movie should look. So like this was a very long-winded way of being like, I'm not saying stop doing Spider-Verse stuff, Sony. I'm saying do it better, make better choices, pick better characters, take bigger risks, and let's have some fun with it.
You know, Kevo, I can see in our reviews that there's only one Spider-Verse film that you felt truly deserved an S. And I would just love to, as we wrap up, make sure that you are feeling, I don't know, that like I sort of feel like you are feeling like your Spider fandom is reflected. I remember one of the things that most impressed me about you when we first met was that you said that you had almost gotten into Ultimate Spider-Man as a result of the comics, not as a result of any sort of like side thing. And I really think about how Ultimate Spider-Man has so influenced the idea of who Spider-Man is now. And yet the idea of Ultimate Spider-Man is Miles. And the only one of these Spider films to get an A from you is the Miles film. How do you feel about the shape of Spider-Man in cinema? And how do you feel as a fan who is always, eager to engage with the Spider universe? I was going to say destined, but that was like that's such a web of like life and destiny thing.
Well, first, yes, this is mine. The one that I am keeping up though is what the total results are so far. So this is from everyone. Nice to see that a lot of people are making sure Madam Web isn't getting too low ranked. Interesting to see that Endgame has a boost there. I'm just not sure what to feel about the state of Spider-Man in cinema currently. I feel like we are currently holding our breath, not sure what the next thing is going to be. Across the Spider-Verse 2 being pushed back continually isn't helping that. Not really being sure what or if the state of Tom Holland's Peter Parker is going to be is also a little frustrating. What were you going to say?
I believe, isn't the third film currently called Beyond the Spider-Verse? So
I
it's
don't know.
like,
Yeah.
it's like even got like a third name, which makes the whole process even more difficult because like when you sign up for alerts on a film, you sign
Yeah.
up for alerts on a film by a title, not by like a word within the title. Or everybody who's ever signed up for alerts about a third City Slickers film would be getting every movie with the word city in it.
Yeah.
Well, that Curly's gold joke landed like clonk. So, all right, let's wrap this bad boy up. Guys, I have loved talking about spider movies with you. You know, I think about where this show started as a comic show and as separately an MCU show, and how this is such a perfect intersection of that's not really comics, it's not really MCU, but it's all the three of us. And it's so magical when we get to talk about these sorts of projects. You know, Kevo, you are wearing a Scarlet Spider shirt. I'm wearing a Captain America shirt, and TK, I love that Fogwell shirt because all three of us are sort of representing the magical intersection of how Spider-Man is so influential as a Marvel hero. Whether it's a direct iteration of Spider-Man or it's heroes that existed outside of Spider-Man's world, there's sort of no iteration of Spider-Man in fiction and media that escapes the idea of the bigger Marvel universe, whereas Morbius existed so clearly in a vacuum. It's fascinating that we talked about Madam Web, Morbius, and so many other things and couldn't get away from Spider-Man. Yet, if you were to talk about Spider-Man, it wouldn't be difficult to avoid Madam Web, Arachne, Craven, Morbius, Spider-Girl, Araña, like the number of people we could avoid to talk about Spider-Man, but we couldn't avoid talking about Spider-Man with them. It's indicative of a central hold that so many elements of fiction have over us, and how it's very difficult to come back to anything but the main characters. I hear all the time people say, well, then just create a black character as popular as Spider-Man. You create anyone as popular as Spider-Man, I'll wait. It is a brilliant stroke of magic that Bendis was able to create a Spider-Man that is as important as Peter Parker in Miles Morales. And I am really excited about the possibility of 10 years from now, when we are making movies and making TV shows, being asked what we think about Miles Morales getting a starring Spider-Man movie. It's really engaging and really rewarding to get to talk about all of this with you guys. And I, for one, can't wait till we have movies 18, 19, and 20 to come back to this list with.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
All right, Kevo, I know tomorrow we're talking Traders, we're talking Drag Race, we're talking UK versus the world. Can't believe they snuck in a Cascada song. Talk about Eurotrash. Because Morbius. So, Kevo, where can everybody find you online?
Yeah, that Grease thing was so weird.
As a guy named Nico Vasillo, what the fuck?
Yeah. But in the interim, you can find me on the socials at Kevo Really. That's KEVOREALLY. Teak, where can the folks at home find you?
You can find me at TK Elemental. Nico, where can everybody find you?
You guys can find me being so excited about the potentiality of a spider universe, whether it involves these incredible female characters or not, though I would really, really prefer a spider universe that engages with the potentiality of a diverse spider web. That said, you can find me at Nico Action at COACTION. You can find my music uploaded on YouTube and SoundCloud. You guys can also find me over on Twitter, Blue Sky, and more at Nico Action. I love getting to bring this show to you guys 3 times a week. So please continue to like, comment, and subscribe. We love so much of your guys' comments. It means so much to us. People like Tasty Cake and Peak Jonah contributing every single episode. They really make this such a rewarding experience. I'm so grateful for that. But In addition to those sorts of basic things that we need everybody to do, we are also asking that you guys do 3 special things for us. Number 1, we ask that you guys stay safe. Man, it is a spooky world out there. Number 2, we ask that you guys be brave so that you guys can continue to evolve and be amazing in this world. And that's number 3, evolve daily. And we can't wait to see you guys next time. So until 6 p.m. tomorrow, when we're talking Drag Race Traders and more, we will see you guys then. Super cool little spider guys.